across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell, and thank you for your company this Monday evening. A busy day, even though it's coming up to the end of the summer. Travellers, gangs, all the different links to this dreadful A66 crash in which 7 people died, 2 of them very brave police officers, one of them a war veteran. We'll talk about that and all the different elements, the TikTok clips encouraging dangerous driving for online kudos. The teen joyrider was awaiting trial for racially abusing and assaulting officers. He is now dead. Also, 3 police forces are allowing gender-fluid officers multiple warrant cards. We'll talk about that. Controversial policy from Reform UK as well. They're going to prioritise heterosexual men and women who are married for social housing. Is that something you support? Perhaps you do. We'll have a debate about that a little bit later on in the evening. And Gary Lineker shared a speech outside court from a notorious anti-Semite who said Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis. Does seem to keep happening to Gary Lineker. Sometimes, just sometimes, when people show you who they are, maybe you should believe them. Speaking of which, David Lammy was the one who gave the hoax number of the Chief of Staff to Donald Trump to Andy Burnham and caused an international security incident. Mastermind strikes again. We'll talk about all of that, and we'll be trying to solve the mystery of who left the number 7 Lift and Luminate Triple Action Serum Concealer underneath the desk here at Talk. As I've taken over from Kevin O'Sullivan, I can only assume that it's him so far. That's the working basis of my theory. As always, I want your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter or at CardwellPeter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. Tech Up Dave is on the dials today, so he'll listen to them all. We'll pay out as many voice notes as we can. Or you can give me a ring on the main number too, 0344 499 1000. Let's get started. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. So let's talk a little bit about the news of the day and what has happened. One of the really controversial comments from Richard Tice is the first thing that I'm going to bring you the clip of. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but this is Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, saying that social housing should be prioritised for Brits. It should be prioritised for people who are married and have children, heterosexual people who have children. Reform UK might say that's family values, that's the way things are. What do you think of it? 0344 499 1000. Let's hear what Richard Tice said earlier today.
The first people that one should be looking after are young British workers, under 35, young British married couples, young British veterans who've done the right thing. They've got a job, they're doing their best, working in their community, setting a fine example, because the role of the British government is actually to look after British citizens first.
So what do you think about what Richard Tice has been saying today? There's been some controversy over it, 0344 499 1000, on that A66 crash as well over the weekend. Absolutely dreadful, fatal collision. 7 people dead, including 2 very brave police officers who were trying to just do their job, one of them an Iraq war veteran. The local MP is Anna Turley of Labour. This is what she said.
It's been an absolutely horrendous few days, and everyone's thoughts are with the families of those who've tragically lost their lives. And I think it was important that we had a space to come today to reflect, to come together, to grieve, and to think about the families, and also to think about the incredible contribution that those brave officers made to keeping us safe, and their loss will be sadly missed. It was shock at first and disbelief, and I think the communities felt numb really, and horror that 2 men who were out in the middle of the night doing their jobs, should have been coming home at the end of their shifts to their families, couldn't do so. A tragedy that was really horrified people in the local area, really upset the community, and I think people are just devastated, and everyone just wanted to come together to share to send their love and their sympathies to the families who are waking up without their loved ones, but also to Cleveland Police, because they are a close-knit family police force.
The Labour MP Anna Charlie speaking there in Middlesbrough. 12 arrests have been made. We'll get into that with Peter Blexley, our crime commentator and former Metropolitan Police detective, in just a second. But I just want to play what the Prime Minister has said about the crash too.
Firstly, can I say it was a devastating incident in the northeast, and our thoughts are with the families of everyone who's been affected. 2 police officers serving their communities, really heartbreaking. The investigation is ongoing, and there's a limit to what I can say at this time. But of course, anybody who glorifies dangerous driving is doing something that is truly reprehensible and unacceptable. In time, we will come to all of the issues involved here, but at this moment in time, it's right for the investigation to take its course.
9 men and 3 women have been arrested in connection with the crash. Cleveland police said the suspects, aged between 19 and 61, were arrested on suspicion of offences ranging from possession of a firearm to participating in the activities of an organised crime group. We remember PC Matthew Blades, who was 37, and PC Tom Clough, who was 38. They were killed in their when a Volkswagen Passat, which had been pursued by police, was driven the wrong way along a dual carriageway near Middlesbrough and hit their marked vehicle. The 5 people in that car who are also dead: Cole Worthy and Theo Ray, both 17, Mackay Saddington, 18, and Michael Robert Cahill and John Matusek, both 23, pronounced dead at the scene early on Saturday. Cleveland police said 4 of the occupants of the Passat had previous police convictions. Let's speak to Peter Blexley. And Peter, this is a dreadful tragedy. What I'm also reading an awful lot about as well is TikTok videos of people putting on social media really, daring and completely reckless, horrendous crimes on the road to try to impress people. As a former Scotland Yard detective, as a former undercover officer yourself, I just wonder what you make of all this.
The scourge of society and the most dangerous people to you, me, all of your fabulous audience, I've discovered in many years of policing, are those people that think they can do as they like. They regard driving as a right and not a privilege. And they behave by a set of rules that are alien to us. They fly in the face of the laws of the land. They think that they can act with impunity. They don't take the steps that we do as and when we go onto the roads, which are to ensure that our car is roadworthy, to ensure that it is insured, to check that we have the necessary qualifications, licence, we've passed our test, and that, most of all, most importantly of all, that when we take to the road, we have consideration for others, be they road users or pedestrians. Now, I am not prejudging this situation, but I'm merely telling you that the aforementioned people that I encountered when I was a police officer are the absolute dregs of society. And if we fast forward all these years now to people who think that driving quickly and recklessly is something to be posted on social media, they very much fall into that category.
It's interesting as well that Downing Street has told social media companies to act after these utterly disgraceful videos linked to a number of fatal accidents. What's interesting as well is what's happened in Ireland just about a week ago. 5 teenagers killed in Ireland in the early morning when they drove a BMW down the wrong side of the M9 motorway in Ireland, colliding with a family heading to Dublin Airport for a UK wedding. Boys aged 15 to 18 died at the scene. 4 family members, 3 sisters and a 7-year-old boy were taken to hospital with serious injuries. And the boys, apparently identified with the so-called Lucky Dip gang, a loosely organised group police in Ireland believe are behind a large number of carjacking and dangerous driving incidents near Dublin. And just thinking about those TikTok accounts, one viral video this month showing a driver repeatedly flicking his headlights on and off full beam while travelling quickly down country lanes, and one comment online which has been viewed more than 22.5 million times: the best way to live, go fast to feel alive. A lot of allegations that these gangs are trying to outdo one another, Peter.
I think there may be some truth to that. And of course, the tragic, really tragic thing, and it's been proven time and time again over the decades, over the years, is so often when people are irresponsible with their driving, it's beautiful wonderful, innocent, heroic people who get affected, who have their lives taken from them, or who suffer dreadful, dreadful, life-changing injuries. And this is what happens when people think that they can act as they want to act, that they do not behave like all us law-abiding people do, that they do not respect the rules, the laws, the regulations, and they do not think of others. Selfless, brainless, irresponsible, and I just wish we had more traffic police so that more of these people could be held to account.
And when we think about the two police officers who died in this incident, PC Tom Clough, 38, a former soldier, his family said he fought for his country to make the world a better place. PC Blades, his wife, said he was loved beyond words, of 37-year-old PC Matthew Blades as well. PC Clough, a soldier who served in Iraq and Afghanistan before becoming a police officer, first for the Civil Nuclear Constabulary and later Cleveland Police. Two great men who served their country with great bravery and distinction, Peter.
While we sleep in our beds tonight, hopefully safely, men and women, the likes of Matt and Tom, will be out on the streets trying to keep this nation safe from those who would do us harm. If it weren't for these wonderful public servants who selflessly don the uniform, don the kit, and work throughout the night, then this country would be even worse than it is. Whilst Matt and Tom may have been taken from us, their names remain. Their names will live on heroically forevermore.
Peter, another story that's caught my eye today about 3 police forces allowing gender-fluid officers multiple warrant cards. This is Leicestershire, Norfolk and Suffolk Police confirming they've issued more than one identity card to officers to reflect different genders. This is the Telegraph and a Freedom of Information request that they've done. So this is police officers who identify as gender-fluid, issued with both male and female warrant cards, allowing them to use different identification. Aside from the ludicrousness of this, isn't that a security risk when you have extra warrant cards floating around, Peter?
Well, moreover, I think it's extremely unfair on the officers that work alongside them. Imagine turning up for work and not knowing whether your colleague is going to identify as a male or a female for any particular shift. How do you address them? What do you call them? And you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be an enormous great hoo-ha should you, unfortunately, misgender them. That's the problem for me. If you're going to identify as whatever it is you want to identify as a police officer, you must do that consistently, each and every shift. And a question that I've asked today without answer is, I wonder if they've been issued 2 sets of uniforms. Perhaps one that would fit somebody who identified as a male one day, and then somebody else who may choose to identify as a female another day, perhaps with an altered body shape. Would they have 2 separate uniforms?
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. They can identify however they want, but they must remain consistent.
Peter, another story that's in the news today about probation officers threatening to quit over government plans to release 5,000 prison inmates early. This is a huge problem for the probation service, for the police, for all of us in society, really. 91% of probation workers voted to strike last week, claiming they cannot protect the public properly. Now, overworked officers fear the impending surge will push the services to breaking point. A former officer has told The Sun, probation officers I've spoken to are horrified by this and scared about what will happen, but don't feel they can speak out about it. Well, you can speak out. What are your thoughts on that, Peter?
Well, it looks like they're going to vote with their feet and go out on strike. Everybody with any semblance of intelligence will tell you that releasing thousands of criminals back onto the streets, whilst at the same time so many police forces are shrinking in terms of their officer numbers, it's a recipe for disaster. The probation service never recovered from the ridiculous Tory privatisation that went on some years ago. It hasn't recovered. It's not sufficiently funded. There aren't enough probation officers, and it just adds into that mix, that crisis of the criminal justice system, which leaves us all, unfortunately, a bit less safe than we used to be.
Peter, as always, thank you. Are you on your travels at the moment? Does the tour continue?
Back on stage in Darlington on Saturday, and for the next 3 months, I've got just under 60 shows to do. I'm coming to a town or a city near you. Please grab a ticket. You're going to really enjoy it.
Well, I can testify to that. I saw your brilliant show, The Makings of a Murderer, in Belfast, and I'd head over to Peter's website right now and see if he's coming to a town near you, because that would be a really good way to spend an evening. Peter, thank you very, very much indeed. Peter Blexley there, former Scotland Yard detective and undercover officer, and yeah, he's doing this nationwide tour at the moment. He's 16 more dates, as he said there. I went to the one in Belfast, and it was really excellent evening. All sorts of people there as well, people interested in true crime, people interested in the specific crimes that he was talking about, talk viewers and listeners as well. I spoke to a number of people there who watch the show and things, so it was a really good evening. Highly recommend it. Chris has been in touch and says, I live in Caerphilly and it's like the Wild West here. Young drivers speeding around with no consideration of others makes me so annoyed. Sue says, Richard Tice is absolutely right. The concept of social housing was for the benefit of British married couples. Dawn says, when I was in local government, the Housing Allocations Committee always approved people with a local connection for council housing. Nobody could turn up and jump on the waiting list. Amanda in London says, are there no limits to the lengths which Burnham will go in order to embarrass this country further? For heaven's sake, singing with his guitar to Ukrainian soldiers, whatever next. I can see the time coming when he'll be doing Morris dancing. Trev in Boston says, now in 2026 the British people are seen as second-class citizens in their own country, and we're now importing a crime wave while releasing a crime wave. It cannot get any worse. This Labour government will never look after its own, and if it wasn't for the alarm clock Brits, they would gladly see us gone from here and never come back, as we are the very thing they oppose. In 2029, will the UK still be recognisable, and how many British-born taxpayers will still be here? We can only hope that by the time this party are kicked out for lying and deceiving us, they're put on trial for the damage they have done, says Trev. Reg says, to think that Andy Burnham stops for half a second after every word that he's spoken so people can use them for sound bites. Another person says, I miss Mastermind Lammy from the government front bench. He was always very funny without trying. Surely a king of comedy will be reflecting on his Mastermind career a little bit later on after he gave Andy Burnham. He was trying to be, oh, look at me, I've got, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff to Donald Trump. I've got her personal number, I'll give it to the Prime Minister. Yeah, turned out it was a hoaxer. Well done, David. Fantastic work there yet again. And Zarina says, just on Foundation Gate, it's actually concealer. It's Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Serum Concealer, which has been found underneath the desk. Zarina says, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the foundation belongs to Asher Gold. He is always topping up live on our great show as usual. Well, we don't know. Found underneath the table. My working theory is Kevin O'Sullivan. Could be Ian Collins. Don't know. Let me know your thoughts on all of that. We'll go to the debate desk in a second. Joe Wheeler, Sean Hickey standing by to go through the news of the day, and I'd love to hear your views too. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
We've just got a wall of silence from the government at every level. In our little village, we've actually got, it will be a 10-to-1 male to female proportion.
That's grotesque. It's grotesque, isn't it?
10 to 1. And as I say, not a single backbencher, MP backbencher, has dared to make what I call a career-ending discussion, a career-ending discussion dare to mention that you have a feeling for women and children who are going to be exposed to this risk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Joe in Portsmouth has been in touch and says they're emptying the jails because they know civil unrest is coming. Elaine said, well, I'll come to that in a second. Gary says Peter Blexley hit the nail on the head. I guarantee you it's only a matter of time before we learn that one of these police forces that is issuing 2 warrant cards to gender fluid officers is paying out tens of thousands in compensation for cases of misgendering in the workplace. Well, we'll come to that in a second on the debate desk. Elaine's theory is that the concealer that I found under the desk, number 7, triple action serum concealer, belongs to Alex Phillips, who was on for Julia this morning. I don't know Elaine, but I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But you just never know in this business. I remember being in makeup one day and getting those wipes to take the makeup off. The brilliant makeup and hair team make me look sort of vaguely human, so I don't scare people over their dinner. And I was getting the wipes to take my makeup off, and they said, Peter, you're the only man who does this. The rest just go out into the world with it on. So there we are. Let's go back to what Richard Tice was saying a little bit earlier on today. He's the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, of course, MP, and he was talking about this idea of the British government looking after its citizens, especially when it comes to social housing. This is what he said.
What about the families who have lived in those houses for years and years, who have come to this country and paid tax and worked hard? How do you answer that, my friend?
Very simply. We were told people were going to come to the country to work, not have a right or an entitlement to a British taxpayer-funded home. It is only right and fair that young British workers, young British families and veterans should be given priority and preference. That is the decent, fair thing to do. Housing should be allocated based on suitability. Currently, it's based on need, and you've got situations where people are coming from overseas with large families and jumping to the front of the queue. And those who've done the right thing British workers are still living with their parents into their 30s, seeing no way to get onto the housing ladder. So we're proposing to change the system and to make it what actually Nye Bevan, that sort of hero of the Labour Party post-war, that was the original intention. And it was a privilege to be on the social housing list, to have access to a council home. That's the right thing to do. But in addition to that, Jeremy, we're also announcing today how we will pay for an additional 50,000 new affordable social homes built every single year over the next decade. I've got a background in building. We know how to get it done. At our press conference at 11 o'clock, we will announce how we're going to fund that. And again, it is the right and fair thing to do. Put Brits first, and then if there's some spare after that, fine, that can be allocated.
Richard Tice speaking to Jeremy this morning. This is the story about working Brits aged under 35 will go to the front of the queue for social housing under Reform UK plans. Forces veterans and married couples with kids will get priority. Sean Hickey and Joe Wheeler are on the debate desk with me this evening. Sean, good evening. How are you doing? Sean's head of content at Politics Joe, and Joe Wheeler is broadcaster and meteorologist, queen of just generally everything. Knows something about every single possible topic, as does Sean. So Sean,
Swiss Army knife, I keep
the Swiss Army knife of guests, yes. Tell me your thoughts on this. What do you think about what Reform plans to do here?
It's another spaghetti string thrown at the wall to see what sticks to it, I think. Tice was just saying there a second ago that the proposal is 50,000 in the next 10 years. That's 5,000 a year. I think the proposals from Keir Starmer were in the millions when he first got in.
His plan was 1.5 million homes overall. I think that what Tice is talking about are social homes, so it's 1.5 million homes in general. But isn't it maybe perhaps more realistic? I mean, Angela Rayner was saying a few weeks ago as Housing Secretary that they're just not going to reach 1.5 million, so maybe being more realistic is a better idea?
Well, look, it's a good argument, but I mean, in the nature of politics, you always overpromise and underdeliver.
Maybe they're changing politics. Maybe they're blowing it up and changing it.
I would imagine that everything to do with the Reform Party, considering that most of the party are Conservatives in the first place, that the party is going to continue along the line of overpromising and
I don't think overall, but yes, in Parliament, certainly, you're absolutely right there. Jo, what do you make of this policy?
Well, this is certainly something that I want to hear because it really translates into charity begins at home. And what he was saying there is entirely true. You know, Brits under the age of 35 get a chance of living in a home of their own rather than living with parents. He also prioritises veterans and then says whatever is left over, you know, can then be distributed amongst those who need it. But it is basically prioritising the Brits, which I think is the important thing and what people want to hear.
He talked about suitability versus need. When you hear the ideas he has about suitability, Sean, when he talks about married couples with children, for example, and that obviously excludes many people, we also have a situation where he's saying people who come from abroad that have large families, they are more perhaps in need, but actually they're not suitable, and we should be deterring people from coming here with large families. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of the debate today, wasn't it? That I think even in this story itself, under 35s are not being pushed to the front of the queue. They're taking the place of people that are coming from abroad.
Isn't that the same thing?
Well, not necessarily. It's not the front of the queue. They're still behind people with families, people with children. Single people are also behind people who are married, people who are in civil partnerships.
Surely people who are married need homes more. If you're two of you who are married, is that not a better idea to rather than giving homes to single people, extra rooms?
But there's a favourability in that of people who are married versus people who are not married but in a relationship that have children. Now, I know a lot of people that have gotten married recently. It's very expensive to do so. I'd argue that somebody that's on social housing
it doesn't need to be. A couple of £100 will do it.
Well,
you can go down the registry office.
Yes,
but should you? I mean, Sean's point, maybe, or development of Sean's point, is perhaps should you have to go down the registry office and get a piece of paper to be more suitable for homes? I'm not talking about spending 20, 30, 40 grand on a wedding. I'm just talking about, well, if the Reform UK is the government and it says we've got to be married to get further up the housing list, people are going to do that, aren't they?
Well, I'm not entirely sure how much weight that is going to carry.
It's going to put them further up the list.
People under 35 with kids, you know, might be considered in the same way. But I'm sorry, actually, I think the family underpins British society, and sadly, it's been in decline for a long time.
Aren't two people who aren't married and have kids, isn't that a family?
Listen, let's not look back over my own history, shall we?
I'm not bringing it in. I'm not bringing it in. But, I mean, should people... Imagine you're two consenting adults in a long relationship. You haven't had kids, but you're not married. But someone is, you know, maybe married for maybe one kid, maybe married for a couple of years. They're going to be ahead of you in the queue. Is that something that we should...
Yeah,
I mean, Richard Tice says it's good to encourage people to be married, so maybe that's part of it as well.
Well, possibly it is, and like I say, that brings back together the idea of the nuclear family, where, you know, two parents working together support children and their family as they grow.
It's very outdated, though, isn't it?
Well, you know, what goes around comes around. What was in fashion may well come back in fashion. But there are already incentives to be married in terms of tax. So, in actual fact, the incentives are already there. If that extends to housing,
maybe
is that an issue?
Maybe it's just extending what's already there in the system, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I buy that as an argument, really. I think...
I mean, if you're incentivised through the tax system to be married...
Which we already are.
Which we are. Surely housing is a similar thing.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know why somebody who is comfortable with their partner and not married needs to be forced into marriage.
Well, they're not forcing anybody to get married.
Well, I mean, it's an incentive.
An incentive's not the same as being forced.
You're going to...
Forced marriage is an actual thing. Let's just be... Well, it is. I mean, it's not a laughing matter. I mean, forced marriage is a thing that happens in our society, and shouldn't, and happens internationally, whereas... If you incentivise people, I mean, Richard Tice says it's a good idea to get married. That means that's the there are a lot of statistics that say two people who are married with kids, that's the best way to bring up kids.
Even still, if it's a good idea to have people married and people not married, I think we're getting into the weeds of marriage here when it's a social housing issue.
But it's been brought up today. I think it's a relevant argument.
Yeah, no, of course it is. But I don't think, on that matter, I don't think there should be a hierarchy between someone who isn't married and someone who isn't married.
Why not?
Well, because it doesn't matter if you're married or not. If two people live together and they have children together, they should be considered on par as someone who's married.
Do you agree with that, Jo?
Well, yes, I do, in part, but I don't disagree in the idea that married couples under 35 with children should be prioritised in a housing list.
What about gay couples? What about same-sex couples who are married versus same-sex couples that aren't married?
I would make no distinction between those.
On the radio earlier on today, Richard Tice did have a problem answering that question when he was asked whether...
It was on Times Radio, yeah.
Yeah, a sister of this station, I believe.
It is, indeed, yeah.
Or a relative, a cousin, perhaps.
But I think we're the uncle... I think we're the dodgy uncle who invite Christmas dinner and sort of thing, you know. I suppose we have to once a year.
No, but what was it he was saying? It was that there's a tier to whether you're married, whether you're not married, whether you're in a same-sex relationship, whether you're in a same-sex relationship but not married. There's tiers to this that get very questionable at some point, I'd say. Because while you might argue that Britain is a country, and I think most countries in the world are countries that cherish the family unit, the family unit has changed over time.
Oh, totally has. But Reform UK don't seem to perhaps have acknowledged that, or at least they're saying it's more desirable. It's an interesting point. I wonder what you think at home. Does this matter? Should it matter? 0344 499 1000. We'll be back on the debate desk with Jo and with Sean in just a second. Let me read out a couple of messages on other things. Bridget in France has been in touch and says, as a mother of a serving police officer, I'm beyond sickened as to what's happened to those patriotic, brave police officers. What's making me even more furious is hearing Zach Polanski, the green clown, demanding that police do not have tasers or pepper spray. That is, it's not him specifically, it's a member of his party, but that is certainly a proposal that they'll be debating, and we will talk about that, Bridget. How are our boys and girls supposed to protect themselves against vile, dangerous criminals? He clearly doesn't have a child working within the police. Personally, I prefer if they carried a firearm, but he doesn't want to. He believes that what he signed up to when he went in 20 years ago, they believe they have a very difficult job, Peter. RIP to the beautiful souls who lost their lives. Great show. This is Bridget in France. Well, we will be talking about that dreadful crash on the A66 and all the ripples and implications of it. Horrible parallels to a similar crash about a week previously in Ireland. Lots to talk about that on the debate desk and with you in just a moment. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Keith is in Worthing and says, I assume civil servants working in London get a London allowance. If they work from home, do they still get it? I think they do, actually. Also, wouldn't it be a good idea that MPs' pensions should be a money purchase scheme? They may then have vested interest in the performance of the UK economy, says Keith in Worthing. Interesting thought there. Donald Chelmsford says Andy Burnham has moved on from bus garages and illegal dumps to Kyiv. What a statesman! I think there might be tongue in cheek there from Don. Just my surmising there. Keith in Nottingham says while Burnham is on tour, will he be off to the White House? Can't wait to see him on the front porch doing deals and banjos with Donald. We will, of course, return to the story of Mastermind Lammy himself. And the good news is that you can't really show. There are all these rules about clips and stuff you can show, and what's the thing called fair dealing and news access, and all these kind of rules around it. But if you are specifically talking about a story that has relevance to a historical piece of footage, you can show it. So we will be showing you a bit of David Lammy on Mastermind, which I, for one, I'm very much looking forward to it. I reference it in almost every programme because it is just superb. Right then, let's talk a little bit about this A66 crash. 12 arrests in connection with the fatal collision. 9 men and 3 women held after police officers' deaths on suspicion of offences ranging from possession of a firearm to participating in organised crime. This is after PC Matthew Blades, who was 37, and PC Tom Clough, who was 38, were killed when a Volkswagen Passat, which had been pursued by police, was driven the wrong way along a dual carriageway near Middlesbrough and hit their marked vehicle. 5 men between 17 and 23 were also pronounced dead on the scene early on Saturday. The thing that gets me about this, Joe, apart from the fact that it's a dreadful, dreadful tragedy, are all the implications of it as well. The TikTok videos that people are talking about glorifying this kind of behaviour, trying to outdo people, parallels to a case in Ireland we'll talk about in a second as well. It's just very worrying, not just about what's happened, the news story itself, but all the background to it as well. What do you think?
And I agree wholeheartedly. This came to me really quite slowly. I suddenly realised that I'd heard 2 stories about cars going the wrong way down a motorway or a dual carriageway, resulting in accidents. And my first thought was, I hope it's not one of those social media challenges, you know, like the ice bucket, which obviously wasn't dangerous, but do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that picks up. Parents aren't aware of it, so you think. And obviously this has resulted in the death of 5 kids, basically, or 4 kids and a couple of young men, which is tragic. Of course, it turns out that 4 of them had previous police convictions, so, you know, one can hardly say they were innocents at large.
Yeah.
And
no one deserves to die, though, and
no.
Of course it would be dreadful if that was, it was absolutely dreadful if that happened. The Times actually has been looking into a large number of TikTok accounts promoting joyriding and illegal driving in the UK, several viral videos. There's a TikTok account under the name Ghost. It's posted more than 80 videos of dangerous nighttime driving. One viral video this month alone shows the driver repeatedly flicking his headlights on and off full beam while travelling quickly down a country lane. It's got 2.5 million views, and top comments include "the best way to live" and "go fast to feel alive." Dreadful.
It's disgusting, frankly, and I think there's probably a wider conversation to be had about it at some point. That I mean, we're probably going to talk about Ireland in a second as well, but
feel free to bring it in now if you want to.
This isn't exclusively a British issue or an Irish issue or whatever. I think it seems to me that there's something in the social contract that's broken between young people and old people, that young people find it almost a thrill to risk their lives and the lives of other people in such a way that, I mean, you go out, in the case of the Irish example, the car that was used was bought by the people that went down the wrong way down the dual carriageway and then knocked into a family that was going to a wedding. The apathy and the lack of consideration for other people's lives involved in that.
And just on that case,
horrific.
Let me just give you the details. This is last weekend, so just a week before this dreadful incident in Middlesbrough. 5 teenagers killed in Ireland in the early morning. They drove a BMW down the wrong side of the M9 motorway, collided with a family heading to Dublin Airport for a UK wedding. The boys aged 15 to 18 died at the scene. 4 family members, 3 sisters and a 7-year-old boy were taken to hospital with serious injuries. The boys apparently identified with the so-called Lucky Dip gang, a loosely organised group police believe are behind a large number of carjacking and dangerous driving incidents near Dublin. I mean, there are kind of more things for young people to do than ever. There are, people will talk about closing youth clubs and things like that, but it's not about that. It's not about activities. There are loads of activities for people to do. It is the fact that they are feeling alive, somewhat ironically given the deaths here. They're trying to get thrills from this, and it's putting major number of lives at risk. It wasn't just the 2 police officers who died, it was everybody else in that A66 at that time, Joe, wasn't it?
Absolutely terrifying. as one who's been driving a long time now, you know, I was quite distraught when my kids started to learn to drive and we were into the whole black box issue and, you know, all the rest of it. And I was thinking, well, where were the black boxes? You know, how can you do this? And people have got dash cams, surely they didn't see. And the answer is, well, of course, people who are hell-bent on doing that are not going to be having the dash cams, probably haven't got insurance. But, I mean, it makes you fearful to be out on the roads at night if you think you're going to find somebody deliberately trying to cause mayhem on the roads. You know, it's bad enough somebody loses concentration or falls asleep or, you know, these tragedies do happen. But tragedies are just that, tragedies, not avoidable, deliberate things like this.
Final thought on this, Sean?
No, I mean, I think there needs to be a bigger investigation rather than it just being a case of turning around to a TikTok or a Twitter or a social media company to say you need to fish these things out at the root and you need to report these people. I think something needs to happen fundamentally at the root of society here.
Yeah. Let's talk about 3 police forces allowing gender-fluid officers multiple warrant cards. This is Leicestershire, Norfolk and Suffolk Police confirming they had issued more than one identity card to officers to reflect different genders. Joe?
It's just, I mean, it's extraordinary. I think what was really shocking here is that they can have dual or multiple cards unless they are fully transitioned, in which case they have to go back to a single-sex one. So, starting from the beginning, if you've got multiple cards, you're male, you're female and whatever else you may be, and as we were hearing from Peter Blexley earlier, you know, what uniform they're going to turn up in, because quite often policewomen wear trousers, so in fact they're a similar uniform, so you could be looking at somebody dressed exactly the same way on Tuesday as on Wednesday, but identifying differently.
Does it matter, Joe, how... I mean, if a police officer is coming to help you, does it matter if they identify as whatever gender? I mean, as long as they help you out?
If you're lying in the middle of the road, probably not. But if you're a colleague and are likely to misgender that person because it was Friday, not Thursday, as you thought, then, yeah, I think it does matter. And also, you know, sometimes police are used in sensitive situations where you want you know, somebody the same sex for whatever reason, and actually identifying what is what at that point, I think is critical.
OK. Joe, what do you think? She's Joe, you're Sean. That again. She's Joe, you're Sean. Sorry. Yes.
I mean, we're talking about 3 police forces that have done at least one of these issues, so you could be looking at 6 in total. I think it's not a massive issue in the first place. I agree with what you were saying about the Peter Blexley earlier on, that his concern was coming from a place of, well, how do your colleagues address you? I've had trans colleagues in the past. I have trans friends and comrades. If a situation arises where I accidentally misgender somebody, there's a conversation had in a very friendly and convivial manner. Nobody is jumping down people's throats. There are no disciplinary meetings to be had over misgendering somebody.
But I mean, you're in a very different workplace to the police as well. And Joe raises a good point there. If you've been a sexual assault victim, for example, and there's someone who is biologically male, who identifies as a woman, as a trans woman, who identifies and is trying to sit you down and talk you through what's happened, some people might feel very, very uncomfortable with that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, when you're looking at some of the cases of police overreach or police violence in the past couple of years, I think the general public would be terrified of certain police officers coming up to them in the middle of the night, thinking of the Sarah Everard case, for example.
Yeah, Wayne Couzens now rightly behind bars for life as well. What do you think about what Sean and Joe have said about this? Sean confusingly works for Politics Joe, which is why I had Joe in my head. I know your name is Sean. We've met
Politics Sean.
Well, Politics Sean, yeah, exactly. Get them to change the name. Thank you to Richard, who says, Fluffy Lefty Sean. There we are. Farage is in his head. It's simple, council houses are for the English, and like Tice said, if there's any left over share to whoever, if they come to this country to work, let them rent, etc., and pay for their own homes and dependents, says Richard.
I tell you what, though, Farage is actually in my head, because in the last 4 or 5 of these policy announcements, he hasn't been anywhere to be seen.
It's a very interesting point, actually. It's a bit like that song from the Irish band The Cranberries, that, you know, zombie, it's always in your head, in your head. Graham from Bushy says, will Will we see Andy Burnham as the UK's Eurovision entry, as we know how much he loves Europe? Very interesting point there. Guy in Derby says if one of their members got attacked, the Green Party would be relieved if the police had to use a taser or pepper spray to save them from harm. It all sounds as if they're scraping the barrel with attention seeking now. Thanks, Peter. And Rob says, regarding the housing situation, my friend's brother tried to get social housing as a single man and he could not after years. He then declared he was a gay man and was prioritised and got a property. So this is already happening the other way around. Hughie says if incentives were going to be used to encourage marriage, which I agree with, it would also be necessary to go back to the pre-1960s divorce law that made it very much more difficult to divorce. Probably not a popular opinion, but that is now how I feel. I'm afraid I disagree with you, Hughie. I think people should be able to get divorced as easily as they can. Sometimes people just make mistakes. And quite a lot on the concealer. Actually, this is the number 7 Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Serum Concealer. Maybe I could ask Joe, who do you think it belongs to? Which presenter do you think it belongs to? It was found on the floor.
Well, so we're talking basically, no, Alex was in for Julia.
That's right, between 10 and 1.
Well...
Possibly Jeremy Kyle?
No, I don't think... No, it's not JK. No, but I don't think it was Alex either. I think Alex would go for
Samara's
something...
been in the studio as well. Sean, what do you think?
I think you're underpriced on this one, Peter.
Oh? But why would I put it underneath? I found it as I came in.
Maybe you wanted to protect the dignity of the makeup and hair.
It's a sort of double bluff.
You were like, right, I need to top this up myself.
That's it. I mean, Sean, you are looking a bit tired, so do you want to put maybe some on in the break underneath your eyes there? Alison in County Antrim says, check out Asher G. Read the serum. Could it be his? Or Alex Phillips says, Ernie says, regarding the makeup, you haven't had a visit from any police officers who are feeling a bit fluid, were you? Ha ha! And Glyn says, the mystery concealer has Mark Dolan's name written all over it. Guilty as charged. Cancel me for saying it. I don't care. Joe, you were about to say something. I was...
It could be somebody's backup one. So they carry a really smart concealer most of the time, but they've got a backup one just in case the other one, you know, slips down the side of the seat.
Do you have backup makeup? Is that something you carry?
Yeah, I do actually.
Backup makeup?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. You're so Joe Wheeler, you don't even know it. Sort of like Money Supermarket. Let's go to the break now. We'll talk about a few other matters in just a second. We'll talk we'll talk about Gary Lineker. Just it keeps happening to him. I don't know how this keeps happening. He shared a notorious anti-Semite's speech outside court where he said Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis, and mastermind himself, David Lammy, gave a hoax number of Trump's chief of staff to Andy Burnham. He just lurches from one crisis to another. Stay with us here on Talk.
We've just got a wall of silence from the government at every level. In our little village, we've actually got, it will be a 10-to-1 male to female proportion.
That's grotesque. It's grotesque, isn't it?
10-to-1. And as I say, not a single backbencher, MP backbencher, has dared to make what I call a career-ending discussion, a career-ending discussion dare to mention that you have a feeling for women and children who are going to be exposed to this risk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Becca's been in touch from Norfolk and says, I'm so disappointed and angry with my local force. All trust and respect lost. A male PC can identify as a female. On a day I may need them to have a strip search. I have to let them do it, says Becca. Dee has said, perhaps Richard Tice is hoping to encourage the stability of family life by prioritising married couples for council housing. Married couples are less likely to separate than cohabitating couples. The statistics for separation are lowest for married couples with children. Mr Tice is doing his best to lead the way by tying the knot with the delectable Ms Oakshott, says Dee in Chesterfield. Nat in Tel Aviv says, if that doesn't encourage men to get married, nothing will. Also, Phil in Portsmouth said these police officers will want to allow their officers to be who they want. Does this mean that even the police force are going against the High Court ruling that says a man is a man and a woman is a woman, two-tier double standards? Clark in Warwickshire says, said the funniest thing inadvertently, doesn't matter what a police officer identifies as when you're coming to help you. Come on, mate. It's been a long time since a police officer turned up to help someone. They're more pressurised into playing identity politics these days. There's never any available if you're burgled, mugged or assaulted. Just a telephone operator to give you a crime reference number. The police are losing the respect and support of the general public by the day. Great show, says Clark in Warwickshire. Clark, I must say, the police on a couple of occasions have actually been there for me when I needed them to. One, I was a victim of crime about a year ago, actually. It's a horrible thing, I'll not go into it, but it didn't matter. It was just a day and then it disappeared. And they were really good. They rang me back within 45 minutes or something of me reporting it. And previously, I was in a horrible situation once, a sort of family friend and someone had taken their own life, and the police had to come and give the news to the mother who I was with. This was a number of years ago, and I was just there kind of supporting the family, and they were just brilliant. I mean, they were really, really good. On the mystery of the concealer as well, lots of people getting in touch about that, including Huey, who said JK had Poppy Coburn on this morning. That's a really interesting point. You can see that on the screen there. This is the mystery concealer, which was below the desk, although it was very, very obvious there that it had not been concealed. In fact, it was out in the open, but we don't know who owns it, possibly Alex Phillips. On a serious note, Dawn in Chancellor says our new Prime Minister is out of his depth. He is behaving as Manchester Mayor, casual clothes and casual attitude. We're in serious debt with massive social issues. We are in trouble. Let's go back to the debate desk. Sean Hickey is with us, as is Joe Wheeler, because they are the usual Monday night crew, and it's great to have you with us. Tell us your thoughts on Gary Lineker, because he has rather unfortunately shared a notorious anti-Semite Tony Greenstein's speech outside court, where he says that Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis. He's repeatedly supported his support for Hamas as well. I mean, Gary Lineker left the BBC after a furore after anti-Semitic thing that he retweeted with a rat on it, which is a sort of notorious anti-Semitic symbol for Jewish people. Joe, what do you make of this?
Well, for that, he apologised. Was that to save his job? Possibly. It didn't. And now he's shown his true colours. I think what it does is it throws a little bit of focus onto the idea of somebody apologising for something they've tweeted, which has turned out to be unpleasant and has either threatened or finished their job for them. Will he stop broadcasting? Probably not. I believe he's moving into the podcast world, at which point I think his opinion, his attitude will probably count for something, and those who really take offence at this latest tweet of his supporting this Tony Greenstein speech will come to bear fruit for him. I think it's absolutely horrendous, but as I say, it really throws light back on this apology, which was never an apology.
This is just a broadcaster. This is not just a broadcaster. This is not just a celebrity. This is the person, the Prime Minister of this country, chose to be the first person to interview him when it became clear he was going to be Prime Minister. Should he have chosen better, Sean?
Well, I'm not sure in the first instance whether someone like Mr. Greenstein was particularly notorious in the first place. I didn't know who he was until I saw this story come up today.
He's well known within the Jewish community for being an anti-Semite.
Well, on my research on the anti-Semitic part of it, it was to do with a descriptor that somebody used against him, and then it fell through, but he was never actually found as an anti-Semite.
No, I don't think he's been criminally convicted, but he said a lot of things that are very, very anti-Jewish. I mean, it's not someone that Gary Lineker, in my opinion anyway, should be associating himself with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what I think he was associating himself with was somebody being freed or acquitted from the association with Palestine Action, was what
Should he be associating himself with someone who says Zionism is like Nazism?
I think there is a point to be made about how the Israeli government is approaching its campaigns in the West Bank and Gaza.
Nazis?
Well, let's talk about what the Israeli government are doing. There's an apartheid
Are they like
state
Nazis? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that they're like Nazis.
Well, you're saying there's a point to be made about it, so is that the point you're making?
There's a point to be made about the actions of the Israeli government against the Palestinians.
You can discuss the actions of the Israeli government in a very different way than comparing them to Nazis, and then retweeting that.
Well,
the Nazis were the Nazis. You know, yeah. no one's ever been as bad as them, and hopefully ever will.
But people compare actions of horrible regimes to the Nazis all the time. The way that the Israeli government have been acting against whether it's the Arab communities in Israel or the Palestinians in Gaza or the Palestinians in the West Bank have been abhorrent. And organisations ranging from Amnesty International to the ICC have condemned it.
Okay.
The Prime Minister himself has condemned it as well. So on the initial question of whether Andy Burnham should be associating with Gary Lineker for his views on Palestine and Israel, I don't see an issue with it.
Even with the rat, the rat symbol that he retweeted.
Well, as we said, he apologised for that.
Yeah, I'm sure he meant it really sincerely. I'm afraid we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one, Sean. Let's have a look at David Lammy on Mastermind.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie. Which fortress was built in the 1370s to defend one of the gates of Paris and was later used as a state prison by Cardinal Richelieu?
Versailles.
The Bastille. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Pass.
Which country's so-called Rose Revolution of 2003 led to the resignation of its president, Edward Shevardnadze?
Yugoslavia.
No, it was Georgia.
Mastermind Lammy has been up to his old tricks again. This time he's been giving... Can we keep that clip in the system? I have a feeling we might need it again. He's been giving Andy Burnham a phone number for Susie Wiles, who is the Chief of Staff to Donald Trump. The problem is that he was sort of showing off, saying, oh yeah, I got Susie Wiles' number, I'm so close to the American administration. Problem was, it was a hoaxer. Sean?
What do you say? I mean, like, the initial argument might have been, well, maybe that's why Andy Burnham got rid of him in the first place, but he didn't know that he was texting a fake until, what, last week, the week before? It's outstanding, the idea that David Lammy may have been texting this person for years on end as the Foreign Secretary.
And Deputy Prime Minister,
and Deputy Prime Minister.
It is quite extraordinary.
He definitely keeps on giving old Lammy.
I was going to say, by the time you've watched the Mastermind clip, you do wonder, you know, what this man knows or could possibly know, and could he even tell you if he did? So
it's a very good point. Listen, thank you, Joe, and Joe has brought a visitor to see us today, Tony. So very well, we're making him very welcome as well. Lovely to see you as always, and Sean as well. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm not here next Monday. On that note, actually, I'm off on Thursday, Friday, and Monday, and then the following couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing Drive, sitting in for Kevin O'Sullivan, who'll be on holiday. So on Thursday it's Duncan Barks, and on Friday and Monday it's Charlie Rowley, and then I'm back next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday, and I'll be doing Drive for a couple of weeks, sitting in for Kevin, and then normal service resumes from the middle of September. It's all on my Twitter if you can't remember some of that and you want to see what's going on. We'll talk in a second about other big news story of the day about reform and what they're saying. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Peter Cardwell. This is the Evening Exchange. A real pleasure to have your company this Monday evening. Stay with us right through till 10 and get your thoughts in on 0344 499 1000. We're reflecting on that dreadful, tragic, horrendous crash on the A66 near Middlesbrough. We're also talking about what Reform UK are saying today. They said they're going to prioritise British-born workers from social housing. We'll debate that with Matthew Hulbert, the Liberal Democrat activist, and Councillor George Madgwick, Reform UK councillor, in just a second, particularly when it comes to people who are married. Lots more to talk about on that too. Also the crash and the implications, TikTok and people putting things online about trying to impress one another. We'll talk about Gary Lineker sharing the notorious anti-Semite Tony Greenstein's speech outside court where he says Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis. That's something which I clashed a little bit anyway with Sean Hickey on a minute ago, and Elise has been in touch with from Chelmsford and says, and I'm afraid I find Sean utterly ignorant of affairs of the Middle East. It's so frustrating having someone so stupid talking about important topics. Very, very interesting. And just some information from Israel actually that's just come through to me, just been sent through, that apparently Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu revealed this evening Iran had attempted to assassinate one of his sons, so we'll reflect all of that as well. We'll also talk about £500,000 a day spent detaining illegal migrants, moving them around the country. So much to discuss, and to say nothing of Mastermind David Lammy giving the Prime Minister the wrong number for Susie Wilde as the Chief of Staff at the White House, and led to the Prime Minister texting a scammer. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note to the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on the Evening Exchange. Just speaking of scammers, actually, there is a scam going around at the moment asking authors or people who have published works to come on my show. Purportedly from me, it is not. It is a scam, and the people have to pay money to come on the show. We would never, ever ask anyone to pay money to come on my shows or any talk programme. So if you've received an email that says it comes from me, it is almost certainly a scammer, and please report it to the authorities, as I have already. So it hasn't annoyed me. It has annoyed me, but it hasn't inconvenienced me really in any way. But a number of people have contacted me about that. So if you receive an email purportedly from me saying come on my show and will pay money to do so, that is never the case. We sometimes pay guests from time to time if it is their professional role to come on programmes and be a commentator. Yes, we do that, but we never actually take money from people to appear on the show. That is not something that I would ever do, that the show would ever do, or the talk would ever do. Right then, let's talk about the news of the day, this horrendous crash on the A66. Anna Turley is the local MP, and she had this to say.
It's been an absolutely horrendous few days, and everyone's thoughts are with the families of those who've tragically lost their lives. And I think it was important that we had a space to come today to reflect, to come together, to grieve, and to think about the families, and also to think about the incredible contribution that those brave officers made to keeping us safe, and their loss will be sadly missed. It was shock at first and disbelief, and I think the communities felt numb really, and horror that two men who were out in the middle of the night doing their jobs, should have been coming home at the end of their shifts to their families, couldn't do so. A tragedy that has really horrified people in the local area, really upset the community, and I think people are just devastated, and everyone just wanted to come together to share to send their love and their sympathies to the families who are waking up without their loved ones, but also to Cleveland Police, because they are a close-knit family police force.
That's Anna Turley there, the local MP. Well, the Prime Minister has also reacted to this, because there are 7 people dead, 5 people who were in the car, and 2 police officers. This is what the Prime Minister says.
Firstly, can I say it was a devastating incident in the northeast, and our thoughts are with the families of everyone who's been affected. 2 police officers serving their communities, really heartbreaking. The investigation is ongoing, and there's a limit to what I can say at this time, but of course anybody who glorifies dangerous driving is doing something that is truly reprehensible and unacceptable. In time, we will come to all of the issues involved here, but at this moment in time, it's right for the investigation to take its course.
We'll talk about that more as the show goes on. What I want to talk about now is what the Deputy Leader of Reform UK has been saying. He is Richard Tice, of course, and they have a policy now prioritising British-born workers for social housing. My colleague Callum MacDonald over on Times Radio quizzed Richard Tice about this morning, about what he means when he wants to prioritise family units, particularly people who are married. This is what happened on Times Radio this morning.
My lifetime has been spent building homes in property. I've actually built more homes than the previous 24 housing ministers of this century combined. So we're going to get stuff done. We're going to build homes. And the simple fact is the housing system is broken.
Yeah.
The affordable housing system is broken, and reform will fix it.
Does a married British couple get priority over a single British person?
Yes, that is the sort
Why
of
is
order of
that?
preference. Well, because actually
they're doing the right thing.
Families are a good thing. Having British children, British-born children, is a good thing. We need to encourage that, and it's a very natural, normal thing. Has been over centuries for people to get together, to get married, have children, and contribute to their communities. And everything that we're doing is focused solely on that.
A single person might have children.
They might, but in an ideal world, it is well known that married couples, children in married couples, for example, will do really well at school, and we want to encourage that. Of course, sometimes life doesn't work out. We understand that, but as an objective, that is surely preferable.
Richard Tice speaking to Times Radio this morning, our sister station. Well, Councillor George Matchwick is from Reform UK. He's a councillor in Hampshire. And Matthew Hulbert's with me as well, Liberal Democrat activist. Matthew, what is your issue with this policy from Reform UK?
Good evening, Peter, and hi to George as well. Well, I think that housing should be dealt out, given out on the basis of housing need, not on the basis, as it appears from Reform UK today, of some 1950s style tinted glasses, rosy version of what Richard Tice believes is the ideal family. I'm not massively interested, to be honest with you, on what he thinks is the ideal family. What I'm on about is people who are in genuine need for housing.
But Matthew, the point may be that if you come to this country as a large family from abroad, you are, by your very nature, in need of social housing. Unless you have the funds to cover private rental, you're in greater need. What Reform UK wants to do is discourage those people from doing so, and saying to people in this country, you've done the right thing, you've paid your taxes, you've...
But only some people.
Sorry?
But only some people.
Well, they're not denying homes to people. What they are saying is there is a hierarchy of desirability for people to be in social homes. What's wrong with that?
Based on the judgments of people at the top of Reform UK.
Who would, in theory, be the democratically elected government of this country. You believe in democracy, don't you?
Well, let's just hope in theory and never ever in practice.
But if they were to be elected, but if they were to be elected and it was in their manifesto, they would have a democratic right to implement their policy, would they not?
Well, they would, but I think it would be a pretty shameful time. I mean, according to what I can gather from what Richard Tice has said today, this thing would be for heterosexual married families, but he had a difficult time later on in that interview with Callum MacDonald, your colleague, in trying to be able to answer whether...
Although at the press conference he did say apparently that married couples who are not heterosexual would also have the same rights. George, what is the policy of Reform UK when it comes to married couples who are same-sex?
Yeah, so I mean, just going back on what Matthew was saying there as well, look, even in the current housing system, we do have priority lists and priority orders. Those still exist. And to quell any anxiety in relation to people that maybe don't fit in the priority candidacy that has been announced today by Reform UK, it doesn't mean they aren't on a priority list of some description. It's just on what tier of that list is. So that's not to say people that are not married, for example, people that are single and are just going to be forgotten about and laid by the wayside. They're not.
Matthew, let him speak. He listened to you. Let him speak. Let him speak.
different priority system. That's what it is about, and that's the kind of system we already have in place. You know, as much as it'd be nice to say that we do things on merit in this country, you know, on the half we do, but on the other half there is a system in play in councils right now that is based on different demographics, different systems, and we're on about reprioritising those. Now, of course, Reform UK want to put British-born people first. I think that's a common sense policy, and I think you made the good point there, Peter, that obviously if we put that in our manifesto and we're democratically elected, that is the will of the nation, of the people, and we would have a right to do so. We do believe that's sensible. We want to discourage foreign nationals from coming into the country who then require our social housing. We want to reduce that chance.
Can you answer my question? What about same-sex or gay couples? Are they lower or higher than heterosexual?
Equally applies. We had a discussion this today. A lot of the top executives in Reform are obviously not heterosexual, and that was one of the questions that was asked. And it's very clear and unambiguous that everybody is covered in this policy. Same-sex and different-sex marriages are all equal.
So what's the problem, Matthew?
Well, Richard Tice certainly wasn't clear about that. This morning, maybe his briefing didn't extend.
He talked about it at the press conference later on, and that is the policy.
Well, if that is the policy, then I would, of course, welcome that. But I do just wonder if that will be the case if Reform gets
Well, they say it will. They say it will. So they've said it in terms. You just had George say it in terms, yet you're saying, well, it might not happen. I mean, you've got Reform UK's policy is that. George has just told you that's the policy, yet you're still casting doubt on it. Why?
Well, I'd go further then and ask, what about unmarried couples? What about married couples without children? I mean, these are human beings too with need. Why are they not at the top of Reform's list?
George?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll give you an idea. I'm in an unmarried family. I've been with my partner for 12 years. I've chosen not to get married. So this policy would directly impact me. But as I say, this is not about them being discredited or being kind of told that they can't get housing. This is just saying that you'll be on the category below the top category. We reflect that marriage is important in this country. We know for a fact, unambiguously, that marriage does support and promotes really good growth in children, in education and prospects. We know that. That's factually true.
Are you trying to socially engineer here, George? Are you trying to incentivise people to marry?
I think that we think marriage is a positive thing as a whole. I think, and on the whole, it is a positive thing. And we need to support marriage. We need to support the family unit. Look, Reform make no secrets. Our motto is family and country and community. We put those three priorities first, and marriage is part of that family network, which we believe is a really positive thing in this country.
And Matthew, George is right, isn't he? Because the evidence shows that if you have two parents, ideally male and female, who bring up children in a marriage,
ideally male or female.
Can you just listen to my question before you answer it? The point is that the evidence shows that if you're in a marriage, if you have strong male and female influences, you have children in that marriage, that is the most stable family unit there is. That's what it may not be what you believe to be the best family unit necessarily, but that is the evidence that shows that that is the best way to bring up children.
Well, I mean, all I would say is that from the age of 11, I was brought up by my late mum, who did an incredible job. And all I can tell you is that the house was, I mean, I love my dad very much, but all I can tell you is that they were arguing previously a lot, and that the household was much more calm after he had moved out.
I'm not taking anything away from your personal example there, and everybody will have their own story about, and there are lots of couples who don't get on, who perhaps should be divorced. There are lots of people who stay in marriages when they perhaps shouldn't, or they stay for the good of the children, or stay until kids are educated or whatever. But anecdotal examples don't add up to facts, and they don't add up to statistics that show that what I've just described is the most stable family unit, isn't it?
Well, it may be, but what I would rather rely on is housing professionals, making decisions on the basis of their knowledge and profession, rather than some idealised view of Reform UK.
George, final word on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, we as Reform have always tried to do common sense approach policies of putting people that were born in Britain and British first. That's what we try and do. And that's to say, not to discredit anybody. With every policy you have some winners and some losers. Absolutely. And not everybody is going to agree with everything we do. But what we're trying to do is run sensible, common sense policy that puts the priority of family and, let's say, our community and country first. And that's what this policy does. It puts those three principles first. And that's what we aim to do with every policy we announce moving forward.
How has this gone down with your constituents? I mean, you are in a family unit, but you personally, George, if you were going for social housing, which I don't think you are, but if you were, you would be down the list, wouldn't you?
I would be down the list, yeah. And as I say, we've had these...
People don't vote for things that make them worse off, do they?
They don't, but no, not everybody wins from everything every party does. I'm sure that there's any party that you don't benefit from 100% of the time. And as a councillor, when I'm in the chamber, sometimes I often vote against things that are against my better interests because it's the best for the country and best for the community. And that's what this is about. Our policy is evidence-driven. As you just said, we know for a fact that two people in a marriage bring up children in an environment which is better for those children. Now, that's what the evidence shows, and that's what the policy does. So it might not be in my best interest on this occasion, but it's in the country's best interest. And as an elected politician, I'm there to serve the country and the people that elected me, not myself.
Would Reform UK's policy encourage you to get married, Matthew?
Well, I was just thinking there that I'm neither married nor have children. I'm a single gay man, so I'd be right down the list of Reform UK.
It's almost as if, Matthew, that you're not going to vote for Reform UK.
Well, funnily enough, I shall be voting for the Liberal Democrats.
Really?
If current polls are to be believed, are actually perhaps more likely to be in some kind of national government after the next election than that lot.
A lot can change in 3 years, but listen, thank you both very much. Councillor George Madgwick there, who's leader of Reform UK in Hampshire, and Matthew Hulbert, Liberal Democrat activist, who is with us too. What do you make of all of this? 0344 499 1000. Dawn says, if only we could go back to the families and Enid Blyton stories, mum, dad and children and a lovely cocker spaniel, so far away from today's society. With Lammy, the backbencher, not far enough back though, giving the new PM the wrong number. The worst thing about this, which hasn't been realised, is what Lammy told the scammer as he was too stupid not to realise what UK secrets did he give away, says that person. Ernie says, if a former Deputy Prime Minister, Secretary of State for Justice and Foreign Secretary give you a phone number of a senior aide to the President of the United States, you're going to trust him implicitly. Burnham would have given the aide whatever she asked for. That could have compromised so many politicians or things to do with security. That is so bad, says Ernie. Well, we're told that apparently no information that was compromising was sent through. Martin's been in touch about our guest selection this evening and says, Sean Hickey and Matthew Hulbert in the same show, what are you trying to do to us? Why don't you get James Mathewson on and finish us off? Bill also says, I can't bear to listen to that Lib Dem activist. Please find an alternative. Ed Davey would be better. Have asked Ed Davey on the programme numerous times, it must be said. Richard in Northampton says, I think this joyriding and driving in this stupid manner is a trait of a computer game generation who may subconsciously think that they're in a game and not reality. Life is not a game and has no reset. And plenty on the concealer as well. That is many theories about who the concealer belongs to. This is number 7 concealer that it was found underneath the desk earlier on. We're trying to identify who it is. Becca says whoever buys number 7 is being paid way too much. Probably more than me, most people are. And Stephen says the number 10 is Kevin O'Sullivan's. He always gets up, dressed up when I see him at the film game, says Stephen with a wink emoji. Let's talk to you in just a second. 0344 499 1000 on your comments from the sublime to the ridiculous. Stay with us here on Talk.
We've just got a wall of silence from the government at every level. In our little village, we've actually got, it will be a 10-to-1 male to female proportion.
That's grotesque. It's grotesque, isn't it?
10-to-1. And as I say, not a single backbencher, MP backbencher, has dared to make what I call a career-ending discussion, a career-ending discussion dare to mention that you have a feeling for women and children who are going to be exposed to this risk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to Amanda, who says Gary Lineker is nothing but an attention-seeking, pathetic character. He misses his glory days in football. Unfortunately, it seems he enjoys the shock factor of his controversial views. We'll be talking about that in a few minutes with Heidi Backram, the writer-campaigner against anti-Semitism. It was an absolute pleasure to meet her for the first time last week. I've interviewed her a number of times, but I met her in the flesh, and it was lovely to have a chat with her. Steve is in West London and has given me a ring about the police and trans warrant cards. 0344 499 1000, the number he's called. Steve, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter.
Hi there.
Just regarding Sean's comment of it doesn't matter. How does it not matter in any shape, way or form? When the police get a telephone call from somebody who's had a crime committed against them or the witness to crime, they've got no idea what state that person is going to be in. They could have been attacked. They could have been mugged. They could have been burgled. They could have been knocked over. Whatever. The house could have been broken into. And a police officer turns up. What do they do? Do they then arrest that person for misgendering them?
Well, I don't think so. I think what they would do, well, hopefully they don't do that. But I mean, if something dreadful happens to you and you're in danger, you see the uniform coming towards you. Do you see the person? Does it matter what sex they are, what they identify as? I mean, that's a sort of secondary consideration, is it not, when you're dealing with being a victim of crime?
Well, not really. I mean, I've got skin in the game. My wife's a retired police officer. She did 30 years. So I want to see a police officer that I can talk to without offending them.
Yeah.
In a manner, male or female. What about the training? We used to have names for people like this. People with a split personality that don't know what they're going to be from one day to the next. They were schizophrenics. They shouldn't be anywhere near the front line of policing. They should be getting the help that they need to sort out whatever.
Do you think do you think gender fluid people are mentally disturbed people in your view? I mean, you're not a psychiatrist, are you?
No, I'm not a psychiatrist, not in any shape or form. I just live in the real world.
Yeah.
Honest answer, I don't know, Peter. We didn't come across this when I was young, sir. I mean, I'm 62 now.
Yeah.
I grew up. We never.
I've never come across it. I've never seen someone who's been in uniform in a not just an emergency service. I'm talking about people in shops and things like that. I've seen lots of transgender people who identify as different sexualities and different genders and all the rest of it. I've seen people on trains. I've come across them. You know, I'm familiar with that. What I haven't dealt with those people in an official capacity, and I mean, the world is changing. Do we have to change with it, or do we keep do we keep our values and say, actually, hold on a second, you're either male or female?
I think I think you are. My own personal opinion, I think you're male or a female. It doesn't matter what the doctors say. They can chop bits off and stick bits on, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change who you are.
Yes. And people are biologically male and biologically female, and we have the Supreme Court, which backs us up on that, as does biology.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember as a kid, we used to go down, we'd play on the underground. My father was really, he wasn't strict, but we knew when we were right and when we were wrong. And he always said to us, stay away from Soho.
Okay.
Which, saying that to 13 and 14-year-olds is like showing a bull a red rag. First place you went was Soho. we saw more blokes in skirts, and this is in the 70s and the early 80s.
Did it do you any harm?
No, not at all. Didn't bother. But they weren't a police officer. You didn't have the problems that you have now with the law and society of saying you have committed a hate crime.
Okay.
They were always there. It's like people being gay. You know, it's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
What is the big song and dance?
Okay, well, Steve, listen, thanks for that. Let's go to another Steve. That was Steve in West London there, who was joining me on the line. We're going to go to Steve in Leeds now, who wants to talk about the same thing, the same name as the last caller. Steve in Leeds, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, on this issue, my concern is twofold. So the first one is, what you're telling me is a man called John with a beard can arrest a 14-year-old girl on suspicion of concealing drugs, get to the police station, find there's no female officers to strip search her, and suddenly declare in front of the same girl that now he's called Jane, and he's got the right to strip her naked.
So I don't know if that's the case. What I do know is that John with the beard, who you say there, will certainly have a warrant, could, in theory, for these three police forces, have a warrant card to say he's a woman, when he clearly isn't.
Yes. We could carry both at the same time, right?
The 14-year-old, in theory, could refuse the search.
Yes, but then they can be forced to. But the second point is more important, right? The police person's notebook, because my brother's an ex-policeman, is a legal document assigned to that officer and that warrant card to use in court.
Very interesting, yeah.
So if you arrest somebody under the name of John, but then you write the details in Jane's notebook, that's a technicality that a criminal in court could say the notes in there are no longer legally admissible.
That's a really good point, and that's a really good point, Steve, and absolutely illustrates the absurdity of this, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And also, the same John on Monday could decide he wants to get changed in the male changing rooms, but on Tuesday could decide to get changed in the female changing room. So how do other female officers feel about the fact that a colleague one day is a man in the car sat next to him, and the next day says, I want to watch you.
Well, hopefully with the changing rooms aspect of things, the Supreme Court would deal with that, because if you're biologically male, you should be in the male changing rooms. But very interesting points there, Steve, which I hadn't considered, and you've brought your knowledge and expertise to the programme, and I really appreciate that. Two Steves there, Steve in Leeds, the last one, really appreciate that. Keep your calls coming in, 0344 499 1000. On the big issue that is exercising so many of you this evening, Concealergate, who owns the concealer that was found underneath the presenter's desk. It's a number 7 concealer that you put underneath your eyes to stop your eye bags showing in your dark eyes, or your dark circles underneath your eyes. Karen in Falkirk has got in touch and has some thoughts. Karen, what are your theories on Concealergate?
Good evening, Peter. First-time caller.
OK, well, you've called on a very important issue, Karen. I think we can all agree.
I have been doing some detective work.
OK.
And I have looked at all the evidence, and I think it's Dr. David Bowles.
Oh, OK. Why do you think that? When was the last time David was on? Was that last Friday he was on?
David has been covering for Mark Dolan and also Ian Collins.
That's right. That's right.
And Alex Phillips, when I watched her tuned in, she was like, it's definitely not mine.
Oh, so she saw it as well. OK, but she just left it under the desk. Wouldn't you have picked it up? And OK, interesting.
Yes,
OK.
Yes, so I think you'll have to post it to David Bull.
Very, very interesting. Hopefully that theory is correct, Karen, and not a load of bull. Appreciate the call. Karen in Falkirk, do give me a ring on anything else, serious or unserious. 0344 499 1000, especially if you have theories on which the Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Serum Concealer and who it belongs to. On a much more serious note, we'll be taking some voice notes. Let me just play a couple of those before the break. Firstly, from Nick.
Hi, Peter. Nick from Mansfield. Listening to MPs and the Prime Minister or Prime Mayor, whatever he is, talking about the death of the 2 police officers. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're complicit because they've not been cracking down on criminals or cracking down on videos online. They don't crack down on people. Why aren't they cracking down? It needs to be done. They're letting prisoners out early, so nobody's got any problem at all with committing crime, have they? You know, what's the point anymore? Cheers.
Nick, thank you. Let's hear another one from Matt on Reform's social housing policy.
Hi Pete, Matt in Hove here. Just a quick note on Reform's policy regarding social housing and being married. Loads of people get married and then within a couple of months can't stand each other. So what difference does it make if they're promoting getting married early? I mean, you don't even need to like someone. If it's going to mean you're going to bump yourself up the housing ladder, crack on. Who cares?
Yeah, I remember when there was the whole debate about gay marriage and whether it should be allowed, or same-sex marriage, some people call it. I think gay marriage is fair enough. Matt, there was a meme that was going around saying gay people just want to be as miserable as everybody else when getting married. Bex has been in touch with gender fluid police. This is Bex's view.
Hi, Peter. Regarding the gender nonsense with the police, a woman who has been raped does not want a male turning up calling himself Jennifer. This is insanity.
Very interesting point there, Bex, and thank you. I agree with you. Just a friendly reminder to just briefly turn down the TV or radio when you're recording your voice notes, just because we do have quite a number of people who don't have great hearing, and if they have, you know, competing voices, they'll struggle to hear exactly what you're saying, and we want to hear exactly what you, Bex, are saying. And anybody else who wants to send in a voice note or give me a ring, both in the same number, 0344 499 1000. We'll talk in just a second about Gary Lineker sharing the musings and mutterings of a notorious anti-Semite. Why does he keep doing that? Funny that, isn't it? Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, let's take a look at what Gary Lineker has been resharing on Instagram, because this is a video and information shared by the notorious anti-Semite Tony Greenstein, a speech outside court where he says that Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis. This is, let's just take a look at this.
That my opposition to Zionism was because I was Jewish, and that Zionism is in the tradition of the Nazis.
Well, there we are, and that was shared by Gary Lineker, who's been criticised on numerous occasions for his criticism of Israel. He also reshared a post when it came to Jewish people being compared to rats, which is a notorious thing. We have contacted Gary Lineker's representatives for a statement. I don't think that's come through yet, but I do want to speak to Heidi Backram, who's a writer and campaigner against anti-Semitism. Heidi, what do you make of this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, no, it's another example of him jumping into terrible territory when he claims to just be advocating for Palestinians, and he always ends up in these situations, and I'm not really sure how he keeps managing to do it over and over again.
Yes, and I do wonder about this, because Gary Lineker, we have contacted his people. They haven't got back to us. I've just had that confirmed there. But there he is sharing this again. I mean, we can't get inside the mind of Gary Lineker, but what's happened are three things. One, he has, for which he apologised, and I wonder what you make about the sincerity of the apology. He shared this image of a rat representing Jewish people, a notoriously anti-Semitic, long-running anti-Semitic image. Similarly, he interviewed the Prime Minister and called what's happening in Gaza a genocide without any qualification whatsoever. And now he's done this, Heidi. So there's a pattern here. I'm sure Gary Lineker would deny being anti-Semitic. He clearly doesn't like the Israeli government. And, I mean, tell us a bit about Tony Greenstein as well, and what he's like, what sort of a character he is, because he is someone who has been very, very critical of Jewish people, even though he is Jewish himself, and indeed Israel.
So Tony Greenstein is very well known to us, the people that work in this anti-Semitism space. He's been around for decades. He's actually a co-founder of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign National Organization. He left a few times and came back because it wasn't extreme enough for him. But he was outside court celebrating because he was acquitted of being charged with inviting support for Hamas. In my opinion, that was the wrong charge to approach him with. And actually, many, many times over the past couple of years, he's been explicitly supporting Hamas, saying on X, saying in his blog, saying in speeches, saying in webinars, over and over again, I support Hamas against the Israeli army. So in this country, that's illegal. And he was actually taken to court. But he was taken to court for a different charge. And so that failed.
How is it different, and what charge do you think he should have been up on? He was acquitted, as you say, and then had this triumphant speech.
So this is where the devil's in the detail, and this is where we're being failed by the legal system. So there were 2 charges that were potentially there, well, 3 actually, but the one that he got charged with was inviting support for Hamas. Mm-hmm. Which is a slightly different charge with a slightly different set of evidence.
Yes, it's different, isn't it, to say that other people should do what you're doing rather than simply talking about your own support for an organisation like that, which in itself, if you're supporting a prescribed organisation, is illegal.
So there's supporting Hamas and expressing support for Hamas, there's glorifying Hamas, and then there's inviting other people to support Hamas. So these are like the sort of levels that we have, and they were devised for a good reason, because there are people, and the government recognised there were people that were coming out in support of prescribed organisations and normalising them, or encouraging other people to do that. So they sort of delineated between those 2 phenomena, and this is where it gets tricky, because it gets very legally kind of detailed. Mm-hmm. But he was charged with inviting support for Hamas, when actually that was a little bit harder to prove based on the evidence they had. Whereas he explicitly said, I support Hamas against the Israeli army.
What do you think this all, what do you think this all says about Gary Lineker, the pattern of behaviour, and also the Prime Minister, who did, I think, his first interview since when it became clear he was going to be Prime Minister. He did a big interview with Gary Lineker. We played that out, or parts of it, at the time. That was a decision made by Andy Burnham and the people around him to speak to Gary Lineker about this. I mean, Gary Lineker was a very, very good footballer. He knows a lot about football. I would argue he doesn't know a huge amount about the Middle East. A lot of his opinions are very basic and very prejudiced, in my view. He may well deny that. I mean, surely he would have learned by now to just check exactly what he is retweeting. Or maybe, in your view, I don't know, I'm not putting words in your mouth, maybe it shows us the person he is. Maybe when someone does something over and over again, you should kind of believe them.
Well, when he did the rat emoji mistake, he called it, he apologised unreservedly. But then recently, he was on this Palestine deep dive media platform, which is, again, another very toxic place. He's always finding himself around the worst people, coincidentally. But he gave an interview where he said, well, it was a mistake, but actually what I was really annoyed about was that it gave people a chance to have a pop at me. So it was like, he wasn't really upset that he'd been spreading anti-Semitism, but that he'd been caught and that people had drawn attention to it and given people some kind of tool to use against him, which is a bizarre conspiratorial mindset anyway. So what we're seeing with him is that he isn't actually sorry, I don't think. And then, there were no real consequences to that. I mean, he got...
Well, he lost his job at the BBC. I mean, that was a pretty big consequence for the original thing.
Than he was going to.
I mean, that's a very expensive thing to do.
Well, since then, he has benefited financially quite a lot from being on Netflix, being on ITV, and now there's a documentary coming out about him on Amazon Prime. So these are all, he has his own media empire as well. So he's not short of a bob or two. And so and he even said in that interview that this had made life much better since he left the BBC. So I don't think he's really actually suffered from any of this. And it just shows that even the consequences of anti-Semitism, even if they are there, they don't stick.
Heidi, thank you for your analysis of that. It was lovely to meet you in person last week as well. You gave a really, really good speech at the event I was at, which honestly, the hairs were up on the back of my neck. You spoke so brilliantly, and thank you for speaking to the programme.
Thanks, Peter.
That's Heidi Backram there, who is a writer and a campaigner against anti-Semitism. We have asked Gary Lineker for a comment and messaged his people. They haven't got back to us. Tony Greenstein, his views are in the public domain. We played what he had to say there, and you can check out his Twitter. I wouldn't if I were you, but I mean, his views are very, very clear, especially when it comes to Hamas, and what Heidi was saying there is all factually watertight. We're going to talk in a second about the fury as a catastrophic £500,000 a day is spent detaining illegal migrants, moving them around the country as well. Loads to discuss on all of this. And let me know your views on Gary Lineker as well. Whatever your thoughts are, however you want to express them, 0344 499 1000. That's the number for calls and voice notes and WhatsApps as well. And if you want to text me, it's 87222 with the word talk in your text. David Shipley coming up in a second, and we'll hear from you very soon as well. Take some more calls very soon, 0344 499 1000.
We've just got a wall of silence from the government at every level. In our little village, we've actually got, it will be a 10-to-1 male to female proportion.
That's grotesque. It's grotesque, isn't it?
10-to-1. And as I say, not a single backbencher, MP backbencher, has dared to make what I call a career-ending discussion, a career-ending discussion dare to mention that you have a feeling for women and children who are going to be exposed to this risk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Anne in Archway in London, who says it is the responsibility of any adult, in this case an officer, to deal with their personal conflicts internally. To externalise is puerile. That is talking about the fact that 3 police forces have issued warrant cards for both male and female, male and female identifying warrant cards for gender fluid officers who identify as both sexes at different times. A lot as well, a lot of people have been in touch with David Lammy, giving that number for Susie Wiles, the Chief of Staff to Donald Trump, to Andy Burnham. It wasn't Susie Wiles' number, it was a scammer's number. And Bog Standard has been in touch and says, you do make me laugh. You're worried about what secrets Lammy might have given away. Honestly, do you really think Mr. Calamity had any access to sensitive material? He couldn't even spot a policeman standing feet away from him. Yeah, there is that beautiful clip of that where he says, I haven't seen any policemen around here, and there's a policeman behind him, which someone I know who is very good at these technical things set to the music of the bill and sent it round, which is very funny. Nick Heath says, can you you or either of your guests earlier have told me the tax incentive to get married? I am married, and I know the tax incentive was done away with years ago. Maybe I've missed something. Well, it's to do with you as a collective financial unit and putting your tax allowances together, Nick. As far as I understand it, I'm not a tax expert, but I do know there are different rules if you're married when it comes to your joint income. On Concealergate, this is the concealer that was found underneath the desk. It is sitting on the desk at the moment. You can see it on the screen. Ian has been in touch and says the concealer clearly belongs to the police person who popped in. You know, the one called Jane with the beard. That was a reference to a call a little bit earlier on. Let's talk about £500,000 a day of your money being spent detaining illegal migrants, moving them around the country. David Shipley, the investigative journalist, is with me now. David, very good to talk to you again. And we're in a situation where more than £500,000 a day is being spent with this. The Home Office has spent all this money transporting and housing those in immigration detention and border force security in the UK and overseas in the space of a year. It's £185 million plus. This is moving people between prisons, police stations, hospitals, short-term holding facilities and the upkeep of immigration removal centres. And just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to dealing with immigration in this country.
Well, of course, no, the total cost of the system is much, much greater than that. But I think it's often worth trying to conceptualise what these sorts of numbers mean. So the average British household will pay about £1.1 million in taxes in their whole life. So every couple of days, just moving and securing migrants around the country is basically consuming almost the entire tax contribution over a lifetime of a household, which actually is an astonishing amount of money. You know, there's so much we could be doing much better in this country. There's so many, useful, important things we could be spending that money on, and to be spending these vast sums on the migration system, billions on the asylum system, and then when we grant asylum, for example, very many billions more because asylum seekers become entitled to benefits, to housing, and ultimately, to pension credits even when they get old. It's just a hugely costly, disastrous policy, really.
How can it be done differently, do you think? Because if the migrants are there, if they don't stop the boats, if they don't stop the original bit of them getting in, and then the processing takes such a long time, it's those combined factors, aren't they? You have people waiting to be processed, a quarter of whom are lying, because 76% of people who claim to be asylum seekers are given asylum, 24% are liars and are not asylum seekers, often not sent back. The system just doesn't work, David.
Or two of arriving.
Yeah.
The advantage of that is you don't give often if you talk to asylum decision makers, they talk about evidence that's presented that is almost photocopied. They see the same exact stories again and again and again and again. So I would go further and say a lot more than a quarter of these claims are not true. Preference, of course, would be to say anyone who arrives illegally should be detained until they can be deported. And if you eliminate the Albanians, because we have a removals agreement, quite a lot of them go back, hardly any. We're talking a few thousand of the 200,000 or so people who've crossed the Channel since 2018 have been sent home. It's almost none. And that's one of the big problems we have. We're very bad at removing people from this country once they get here. And it's however much a flight is to get them home, it's much, much, much cheaper than housing people for years and feeding them, of course.
What do you think runs through the mind of Shabana Mahmood when she sees this story, when she sees that £185 million in a year is being used to transport and house those in immigration detention, border force custody in the UK and overseas in the space of a year, when £500,000 a day is spent detaining illegal migrants? Because there are loads of our viewers and listeners who will think that money should be spent on people in this country, people who pay their taxes, and their tax money is being taken to do this, to deal with these people who are not legally here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shabana Mahmood's instincts are relatively sound, but actually, like the rest of the Labour government, I think the issue she has is she's stuck in this conceptual cage where they're willing to try to adjust the symptoms and the edges of the problem, but no one seems to be willing to make the changes necessary to make the problem stop. And that would mean changing the system such that there are not pull factors. And if those pull factors weren't here, people would not be spending thousands of pounds each across the channel. If the opportunity to live in Britain wasn't here, if you weren't almost certain to be allowed to stay here one way or another once you get here, then people would stop coming illegally. And I think that is really what we need someone to wake up and do within politics. I just don't think Labour are capable of that.
Well, it's an interesting one from Peter, who sent in a message saying, send all the illegal immigrants to Scotland, let them pay for that, seeing as they keep saying illegal immigrants are welcome. I know a number of Scottish viewers and listeners to this programme will not agree with that, but Scotland and the Scottish Government under the SNP have said that that country is a country of sanctuary, just as many councils in England have said that their council area is a council of sanctuary. Wales as well, for asylum seekers. We've got the government saying that people have to take their fair share. Is there actually a desire, do you think, to deal with this problem? We've had a raft of policy from the Home Office, but are we seeing any action?
Well, they do keep announcing things, don't they? I think we discussed it before. So last November, the Home Secretary announced there was going to be a new approach to asylum and a new approach to indefinite leave to remain, and that would stop the borrowers' way of settling. And we're almost a year later, and none of that's been legislated for. So I think there's a real... They talk a good game from time to time on migration, but there's an absolute unwillingness to actually legislate and act. And I think part of that, of course, is because the Parliamentary Labour Party are just not willing to do anything.
Yeah, they're not in that zone, are they? David, listen, thank you. That's David Shipley there, investigative journalist, who is joining us this evening. Let's have a voice note from Peter, who has sent this in.
Sadly, Peter, with everything being out of control, I fear we are at the beginning of the collapse of everything. We have a government who seem to be promoting this collapse. They seem to be promoting it by letting illegal immigrants flood into the country, allowing criminals to do as they please. Certain parts of society commit crimes, heinous ones, and don't get sent to prison. And even shoplifting is treated like a misdemeanor now. It needs to be stopped. Someone needs to come in with a real hard line in this country and put their foot down and stop all this. But on a lighter note, can you please leave a note for that Jemima Kyle character that's on in the morning? Don't forget to post my mug.
Oh, hold on. So, Peter, Jeremy Kyle said that he would post you a mug to Peter. That was a voice note from Peter. I'm not talking to him. And hasn't done so. Peter, can you text in your details with your address, and I will personally ensure through the good offices of Tech Up Dave that Jeremy Kyle gets that. I will take a photo of it on the screen and send it to him this evening, because clearly there has been a broken promise there from Jeremy Kyle, or a promise unfulfilled anyway. Peter says, what happens when gender fluid coppers need to use a toilet? Very interesting point. Well, hopefully the Supreme Court judgment should be very clear on that. Debbie's given me a ring from Lincolnshire, 0344 499 1000, about social housing and what Reform UK are saying. Debbie, what are your thoughts on this? You're very welcome to the programme.
My major thoughts... Hello, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Hi.
My major thoughts are, I didn't quite get what the Lib Dem guy was saying, where he said, does it matter whether you're married, whether you're, I don't know, heterosexual, gay, whatever? I find that all irrelevant. I think if you're a single parent, you should be entitled to accommodation if you've got to look after your children, because you can't stick them in a tent. I think what the rest of the British public are thinking is, don't come in on a dinghy and then get a house and all the rest of it. Well, we've got people that should be at the top of the housing list.
But are you happy, Debbie, to have Reform UK saying, right, identical situation, you've got a man and a woman who have, let's say, 2 kids who aren't married, but the man and the woman who have 2 kids who are married should be further up the list? Do you think that's reasonable?
No. Because my cousin Natalie, she was with her husband before he was her husband. They had 2 children. They then got married 20 years later. Mm-hmm. Their biggest fear was, if they got married, would it break down? And they're still together now. So I don't really think that a marriage certificate should... I'm a divorcee before I'm now married, as I am now. I don't think that's relevant, but I do think that British people should be the priority.
It appears to me, Debbie, that you agree with the kind of overarching aspect of it, but when it comes to that particular aspect of married couples, do you think Reform have misjudge this, perhaps? Or does the wider policy actually, is that the main thing for you? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't think you should have to be married. I mean, would you like to be told if you were homeless that you must marry someone? So who are you going to pick up? Check up Dave? Come on, let's get married. Do you get my point? Come on, let's be honest. Come on, Tech Up, let's get married so we can get a house together.
Is that a proposal from you, Debbie? I'm not. I mean, to Tech Up Dave.
Can I be? What? I'm going to marry Tech Up Dave.
Yeah. Do you want to marry Tech Up Dave? Is that what you're saying?
But no, you get my point.
I do get your point.
I don't think you should have to have a marriage certificate to get a house, but I do believe you should be the top of the list if you're going to get a house because you're British. Sorry.
Okay, Debbie, listen, thank you.
Does that make me wrong?
No, it's not necessarily wrong. It's, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm very happy to hear yours, Debbie. Tech Up Dave is looking at me through the glass. Do you want to be married to Debbie? No, as a shake of the head there. So I'm afraid Debbie and Dave are not to be united, even if they do get a nice house at the end of it. I mean, that would be a good way. I think a good reason to get married, or would it not? Maybe you agree this is nonsense. Tech Up Dave says he has a house, so there we are. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call on whatever your views on Tech Up Dave's love life, or indeed reforms policy. We'll talk in a second about British pupils being taught to stage school climate walkouts under EU plans.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 9 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Really appreciate your company here this Monday evening. Loads to discuss. We'll talk about EU plans for walkouts from school, climate walkouts. British pupils encouraged to stage these walkouts. Also, a rewritten version of Little Red Riding Hood that talks about her growing sexuality and obvious Freudian imagery. Maybe we should just let fairy tales be fairy tales and innocent, and maybe not look too much into them. There's just so much to talk about. We'll talk to Danielle Nichols, a mother and broadcaster, and Serge Stefai, who's a head teacher. Also, Hagan and Mary's Harry and Meghan's security. Should you pay for it? What do you think? And was that rule in the Netflix drama really anything at all? Whatever you want to talk about, reforms, policy, whether it's Frank says it's okay, but just needs a bit of rejigging. That's Frank in Hereford there. We'll get into all of that. Your calls on the car crash, the A66, absolutely dreadful. What happened on joyriders more generally, on reform and their housing policies. Also, the anti-Semitism that's around, and Gary Lineker retweeting or reposting what that horrible man said. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter. You can follow me at Cardwell Peter on Instagram. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on the Evening Exchange on Talk. And just a little public service announcement. It's repeated on my Twitter, by the way, so if you go to @Peter Cardwell on Twitter, you'll see all of this. But I am here tonight, tomorrow night and Wednesday night on this show, in this slot, as usual, 7 till 10. I'm off for a few days, and it's a combination of Duncan Barks and Charlie Rowley, who will be doing Thursday, Friday and then Monday. I'm back on Tuesday next week, not tomorrow, but Tuesday next week, and I'm going to be filling in for Kevin O'Sullivan on Drive for 2 weeks. So from Tuesday the 1st, for 2 weeks, I'll be filling in for Kevin O'Sullivan on Drive. Then normal service resumes back in the Evening Exchange from the 14th. If all that's a bit complicated and you haven't maybe written it down or it hasn't really registered, go on my Twitter at Peter Cardwell. It has all the details there. Right then, I want to talk about British workers and how they could be taught to stage school climate walkouts. This is under extraordinary EU plans. The lesson plans form part of the Erasmus Plus student exchange scheme, which will cost the UK over £500,000 in its first year alone. Labour's bringing Britain into the programme. It features revised versions of traditional stories, which have been stripped of any gender assumptions, ageism, racism or disableism. The Department of Education points teachers and youth workers towards the plans, but insists this does not amount to an endorsement, apparently. One government-approved provider confirmed the programme, expected to launch next year, carries a strong emphasis on inclusion and diversity. A rewritten version of Little Red Riding Hood, titled Over the Rainbow, states, many people believe that the forest was a threatening and dangerous place and never set foot in it. Red Riding Hood, however, was confident enough in her own growing sexuality, and such obvious Freudian imagery did not intimidate her. The project ideas are aimed at children as young as 13. They may also receive instruction on organising school walkouts and online campaigns to spearhead youth-led climate activism. So far, so much woke nonsense. Let's speak to Serge Safai, who's a head teacher at St Thomas the Apostle School. Serge, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you make of this? Will you be teaching it to children at St Thomas the Apostle?
And the thing is, if it wasn't so serious, i.e. we're talking about kids here, you know, you'd almost laugh it off as...
It's ludicrous, isn't it?
But there's all sorts of stuff going on in education. But I'm increasingly, you know, feeling quite despair about, you know, these politicians or these idiots who advise. I don't even know where they get them from, but good teachers, they join the profession to educate, not indoctrinate. You know, we want to teach facts if possible, not opinions. And of course, I just have always thought that my job, along with all other teachers, is to create a generation that will positively contribute to the society they're going to live in. Not produce anarchists walking out the class. You know, it's annoying. I hope, I mean, again, you have your spokespeople saying, we're just pointing towards it. Well, then you are endorsing it, aren't you? Otherwise, you'd put it in the bin like any other.
Well, exactly. Serge, stay with us just for a second, because Danielle Nichols is with us as well. She's a host of the YouTube show Holding It Together. Danielle's also a mother of kids of various ages. Danielle, I mean, I'm sure you read your kids' storybooks. Were you cognizant of the growing sexuality and obvious Freudian imagery in Red Riding Hood?
No, absolutely not. It's just a story. It's literally madness. It's really strange because, oddly, over the weekend, I was out with some friends, and someone who will remain nameless said that they really believe that their eldest child is ridiculously woke and it's all been learnt at school. So that you know, that had nothing to do with this program, nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. But it just shows you that it's starting to get a little bit ridiculous. I remember being in an argument in school, well, a discussion with one of the teachers, because I was part of the parent council, which means it's not like the PTA. It means you have more of an involvement within the school, and it's not just raising money. But they were talking about gay rights, and you know, a girl penguin can be in love with another girl penguin, and a boy penguin. You know how they do it.
Yeah.
Which was all absolutely fine and well. But the conversation I had was, you haven't done anything about heterosexual relationships. We're diving straight into same sex without acknowledging what most of these children will have.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority, I mean, people can experiment and do various things and whatever, but the vast majority of those students, 95% plus probably, depending on which statistics you believe, will end up in male-female heterosexual relationships. So maybe we should give them some proper educating about those relationships as well. How would you feel if one of your kids came to you, Danielle, and said, right, I'm going to, tomorrow, 12 o'clock, going to walk out of school on a climate protest because I've been taught how to do so by the European Union?
I'd be intrigued, because I remember I was away on holiday for a couple of days, and apparently the school had visited my house twice to see where my children were. So I'm getting fined because I can't go on a holiday with my children for too long, but they can walk out on a climate protest. Like, is education important? Is it not? What conflicting advice here? What we're doing? That's what it is all across the board. It starts to feel ridiculous.
Serge, what do you make of this, especially walkouts? Have you had walkouts from your school on big issues?
If they walked out, they'd find it hard to walk back in. I can tell you that for nothing. And good luck to Danielle. We need more parents to start getting wound up about some of the madness going on. It's been, it's like the whole country's forgotten what puberty and adolescence is about. We want teachers just doing their job. They're not there to, I have to be careful what I say. They're not there to recruit or groom, right? They're there to teach, you know, and as I said, it's like a collective. But
this is what a Department of Education, maybe not endorsed, but certainly not rebelled against. I mean, they're sending this to your school.
Peter, I'm sorry, it's the same thing. They are
of course,
by bringing it up.
Of course, you know, and if it's going to land on your desk, Serge, if it's going to land on your
go straight in the bin.
Okay.
You know, and it's going to go straight in the bin where it needs to be. And I mean, this almost abuse of children has to stop, and the only thing that will stop it will be parents and a bit of common sense.
Isn't it teaching them to think for themselves, Serge? Isn't it what surely the Europeans say, you know, critical thinking and having different ideas and having ideas about the climate? Maybe that's something you want to encourage.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an idea about the climate. Okay, even if we all accept climate change is entirely due to humans. I remember going back 20 years when I was teaching geography, you know, and I said to them, I think the film Ice Age had come out. And I said, you know, woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses and everything else. And I sort of told the kids that we don't have them around anymore. It must have been all those cavemen driving around in their cars. And of course, what happened was, at some point, there was a little bit of silence. And then one of the kids put their hand up and said, sir, they didn't have cars, they didn't have aeroplanes, etc. And I stopped there. And I didn't say which way or the other, but I let the kids can make up their minds that maybe there's a big conversation to have about climate. And that's the problem I have with all this madness, is that people are giving it to kids as though they're facts. And I'm afraid so much of it is opinion, so much of it is people on some kind of bandwagon. Leave the kids alone, teach them properly, and they'll get there, because most kids are great.
Yeah. Why are we not like? Why are we so set on, you know, emotionally? Let me do that with my children. I will have those conversations, and you stick to the maths and the art and the drama and the PE, And you know, and
but this is an interesting point, Danielle, because you're a mother of a number of kids. I mean, there might be people who aren't as responsible as you. There is a role, is there not, Serge, in school to have discussions about not just maths and art and English and history, but actually to say to people about relationships and how they interact with other people, especially when they might be embarrassed to have that conversation with their parents.
But Peter, it's supposed to be balanced.
Or the parent might be embarrassed to have that conversation with them.
It's supposed to be balanced. Again, I repeat, not opinion, not some kind of crusade of recruitment of bandwagon, not to, I mean, I can't even use the word normal anymore because of the stick I get, you know, but there's certain things that we should not worry about saying it's normal. Danielle's, you know, alluded to it. You know, a mum and dad and kids in a house, no one ever talks about that anymore. That is, I'm afraid, you know, I'm going to use the word, that's normal, it's expected. Now, there will be other ways of living your life, and they should be accepted. And in this country, we accept everything.
We do.
know? But we need balance, and we need to teach these kids facts. And I can say what I like now, because if they sack me, I've already got my pension. You know.
Okay. Danielle, final word from you.
I think that we do have to quieten the woke madness, but I know that we are understanding that, I think, and because I think everybody feels the do
you think the tide is turning a bit, Danielle?
I do think the tide is turning a bit. You said this is EU-led, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, I think this is a trickle down.
Okay.
And hopefully, you know, they'll see some sense.
Okay, Danielle Nichols there, host of the YouTube show Holding It Together, and Serge Safai, who's a head teacher at St Thomas the Apostle School. Thank you both for joining me on the programme. Catherine in Cardiff's been in touch. Says, thank you for giving airtime to Serge and the wonderful loud Danielle. I constantly have my head on my hands over the lunacy of modern times. I'm glad I'm on my way out, says Catherine. Thanks also to this person on Reform's housing proposed policy. You really can't take every single point that is put into a policy, as they will tweak some of it if they get into power to suit as much of the electorate as possible. How many other parties change their policies when they get into power? That's a very good point, but of course we want to debate what Reform UK are telling us today. I mean, Matthew Hulbert earlier on was saying, oh, well, I don't think Reform will actually do this, or that's not what they'll do. Well, they've told us what they want to do today, and when you have the Deputy Leader of Reform UK saying, we want to do this, let's debate that and have the conversation. No criticism of you, more of Matthew Hulbert, it must be said. Tony in Warrington says, are Reform just not trying to encourage marriage and stable families and British people having children? This policy alone will not ensure this, but it may encourage it. I'm not old-fashioned, but it is too easy to have kids with no real long-lasting commitment. Perhaps there's a lot that is wrong with society today, says Tony. Another Tony, this time from Enfield, says, I think I have now finally lost all respect for the police. Gender-fluid warrant cards and how a police officer feels on the day. I've never heard so much rubbish in my life. The police no longer have my consent to police. When are we going to go back to real policing? It's no wonder the police have lost complete and utter faith in the public have lost complete and utter faith in the police. Great show, says Tony. Simon in Manningtree says, time and time again I hear conversations where two people agree that something the government is doing isn't working, stating the obvious that everyone with the right mindset would agree with. For instance, £500,000 a day conversation with David Shipley a little bit earlier on. That was on all the money for migrants moving around. If it's that obvious, what's going wrong then? Why doesn't the government take notice and act upon it? Is there a hidden agenda, says Simon? Maybe just their agenda is they're happy enough with immigration in this country, and that is really worrying. I'm not sure they actually want to change it, as David correctly said earlier. He said loads of announcements, no legislation. Peter's been in touch, who's the one who's getting the mug. He's been back in touch and says, when are you going to do some personalised mugs for regular listeners and viewers, Peter? You could outdo the other presenters there. Interesting you should mention that. If you go on eBay, this has nothing to do with me. I make no money out of it. It's nothing to do with me. But there is a themed mug of myself, and I think another of the presenters as well. So if you put in, as I'm sure a number of people have on many occasions, Peter Cardwell mug, to eBay, you'll be able to find it. I bought a few of them myself, actually, a very enterprising individual given them as presents. It says something like, sold this, I'd rather be listening to Peter Cardwell, something like that. Anyway, but actually, speaking not just of mugs, but of people who have marriage proposals, Debbie has been back in touch, actually. She was on the phone a little bit earlier on and proposing marriage to Tech Up Dave. She says, I've just been blown out by Tech Up Dave. I'm crying now, says Debbie. Well, we have the man himself on the screen there. He's the man pushing the buttons. Tech Up Dave, good evening.
Evening.
You've had a marriage proposal from Debbie.
So it would seem.
And?
No.
It's a no. It's a no from you.
From me.
Why?
Sorry.
I mean, aren't you single?
I am single. I'm quite happy single.
Oh, are you? Are you not looking for love?
No.
Really?
No.
I thought we were all looking for love. What would you look for in a woman or indeed a man? Don't want to make assumptions. It's 2026.
I don't know. Somebody I just get on with who can put up with my weird traits. Yes, weird.
I mean, maybe
weirdness.
Debbie's that person. Maybe give her a ring back. I'm afraid I have some devastating news for you, and that is that Debbie is married, actually, to a man called Dave, actually. So she's got
some poetic justice there.
Yeah, irony. Yeah, although, as you know from your love of Back to the Future, sometimes the sequel can be better than the original. So
could be.
Okay. Lots to discuss on all of this. If you want to propose marriage to Tech Up Dave or have any suggestions on his love life, please do get in touch. Similarly, whether it's woke schooling, whether it is reforms policy on housing, whatever it is, you let me know. 0344 499 1000. We'll go to the phones in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
Let's get to the calls now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin. Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to...
Disagree with me.
Yeah. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I know we're talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'll be less accidents. More people...
more people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including Graham, who says, hello, Peter, I've just been listening to the teacher, and to Danielle. These poor children are being confused and they can't make sense of the world. I think the teachers who are teaching this stuff need to visit a psychiatrist. That is Graham. Let's hear a voice note from Elisa in Chelmsford.
The thing that worries me most about Gary Lineker is the fact that he's got such a huge following
Just imagine how many people are being persuaded by his views. It's disgusting. He makes me feel physically sick.
Thank you for that, Elisa. Let's go to the phones now, and quite a number of people getting in touch on Reform's housing policies. One of them is Dave in London. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Dave, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Peter. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Hope you're well too.
Yeah, I managed to catch up. I managed to watch the announcement today.
Yes. What did you make of it?
Well, one thing I would say to Richard Tice is, you know, don't answer questions that are nothing to do with the topic. Just say, please ask your questions. If you're going to ask me, is Nigel in hiding or something stupid, we'll answer all of those questions at the end. So you can ask 3 questions if you want. If 3 of them are nothing to do with today, we'll just can't move on to the next journalist.
But surely journalists should be allowed to ask whatever they want about the Reform housing thing as well. But there are other legitimate questions to ask of Reform UK. And in fairness to Reform UK, they do take a lot of questions, far more than many other politicians and political parties.
I totally agree. I'll answer your questions at the end, Peter. Thank you very much.
Okay.
First, I'll answer the one on the housing, and then the one you asked me at the end. When we finish the event, come and see me and I'll answer it for you. But I'm not wasting my time with you trying to score some points. Because I did see a headline come up soon after saying, Richard Tice says Nigel Farage is not in hiding. So that particular
well, it's always the way, you know.
Deprioritise that journalist and say, thanks for coming, you won't get asked anything.
Yeah, but if they don't bring those journalists in, I mean, the nature of a free press and free speech is that you've got to answer the tricky questions. We cover stuff on this show all the time that we've guests on who, you know, I may not agree with, for example, but I want to hear their opinion. So, because that's the nature of these things.
I agree. I'll answer your question at the end, Peter. Thank you for coming.
But hold on. If Andy Burnham, for example, were to say, I do want to talk to you about housing in a second. But if Andy Burnham were to say, you know, I'm a left wing, I'm going to take the Guardian, I'm going to take the Mirror, you know, I'm going to take the BBC. I'm not going to take Talk. I'm not going to take the Daily Telegraph. I mean, that wouldn't be fair, would it?
I didn't say you weren't taking them, but today's topic is about housing. If you want to talk about something else, I'll do it later. Anyway.
Tell me your views on the housing policy.
I also despair at the British mentality. So you've had loads of people on today going, well, what about heterosexual couples? What about pensioners? What about this? What about that? All Reform was saying was we're going to prioritise certain people. So my son, for example, is engaged to be married, but he's not married. So if you want a social house at the moment, I'd be saying to him, well, anyone that's married is above you, mate. And by the way, when you do get married in 6 months, you do move up the priority list on the Reform policy.
Is that fair?
Well, it's a way of doing it, and it's not excluding anyone. It just means you might be in positions 1 to 10, and the next group might be in 11 to 20. It doesn't mean there isn't houses for the 11 to 20, but by the time you get to 3,599 to 4,000, then there might not be.
But
so
okay, that's fine. But what's the difference between how deserving your son is of a house now than in 6 months' time?
Because he's not married.
Okay, why does that make him more deserving of a house, in your opinion?
Because we want people to get married and have children to reverse the birth rate.
You can have kids without being married, as many people have found out.
That's fine. Then he would get a different score, wouldn't he? He wouldn't score a point for not being married, but he might score a point for having a kid. But if someone's married and they've got a kid, they'll score 2 points.
Okay, all right.
It's not that difficult to grasp, and then. I think
I think I've grasped it, Dave. I just wonder whether it's fair to say to people. I mean, a lot of people these days, back in the day, you know, marriage was a very different institution. Now we have, you know, anybody who talks to me about the sanctity of marriage, I always say, well, Britney Spears, you know, was married for 72 hours or whatever. There are loads of people I know who've been together for a very, very long time, are in very secure, loving relationships, often with children, who don't happen to be married. We're not nearly as religious a country as we were previously. So why should that person be advantaged in any way, even if it's a difference between 1 point and 2 points?
Because we're not legislating for Britney Spears. You know, we're legislating for a wider group, if you like. And in the same way that if my son also goes for the social housing, they say, by the way, how much do you earn? And he says, I'm a banker, I earn 290 grand a year, and my wife's a lawyer and she earns 440 grand a year. He's not going to get any points, is he?
Very true. Very true.
So do you know what? There are people do this all the time. When you go for a mortgage, they go through your entire life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right. So it's an affordability thing, and I think that it would be good to start encouraging marriage. We're not as religious as we used to be, and it's going to bite us on the backside in about 20 years' time.
Okay, Dave, thank you for that. I suppose if you did legislate for Britney Spears and didn't mean to, and then did it a second time, you could say, oops, I did it again. Julie is in Chester and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Julie, should we be encouraging marriage to try to get people up the list? What do you think?
Oh, your last caller was lovely, because you know what, in a perfect world, that would be nice. But if his son's a banker and the partner's a lawyer, then they shouldn't be entitled to social housing anyway, because they've got enough money for a mortgage.
Yeah, well, and I don't think they would be. I mean, I think he was talking hypothetically there rather than the actual. But if you're entitled to social housing, it's this idea that Reform UK are talking about need versus sort of desirability. What do you think?
It's completely unrealistic, and it's fairyland, isn't it? I work in housing, and you know, I've just genuinely looked after you. It disappointed me, Reform, because I honestly thought they were more realistic, and you know, but that's just fairyland. Because
why is it fairyland? Why is it fairyland?
Because I've just googled it, and it costs you anything from £150 to £300 to get married, right? Yep. So if you're on the housing register and you apply, and the person says to you, well, you know, you can bump up, or people in the community say, listen, you can bump it up, you know, because this is what goes on. Same as benefits, say this, say this,
of course.
That.
But Reform UK want people, but hold on, Julie, Reform UK want people to have that conversation. They're attempting to incentivise people to get married, not necessarily pay...
Yeah, but they shouldn't get married for housing, Peter. They should get married because they want to.
I agree with you on that.
You know,
and I think
housing. You're trapped in it then, aren't you? So, you've got to think about...
So have Reform UK misjudged this? Have Reform UK misjudged this, Julie?
Yes, because you're going to have children in households that are unhappy, you know, and they're just doing it to get on the... What about single mums? I've been a single... My son's dad, you know, passed away, you know. He'd never been a part of his life. He passed away. I've been a single mum, worked since he's 4. So does that mean I'm back of the queue?
Well,
Why
it does. It does when it comes to Reform UK's policy.
Say if I don't want to get married, say if I'm happy on my own, safeguarding my son, I don't trust any people. The same with granddaughter now, I'm very protector.
But do you honestly believe
anyone anymore?
Okay, Julie, do you honestly believe some people will say, look, we're in a situation where we need a house? 2 people in a committed relationship, 2 kids. We weren't going to get married, but actually there's more chance of us getting a house. Let's get down the town hall and seal the deal.
Yeah, they will. They will.
Really? Do you think people will do that?
Yeah, if we're going to go on to that education, I've known people, like I come from a Catholic background, and look, you know, I never went to church every Sunday, but I went to, my son went to a Catholic school. There's schools in Liverpool that I know people have gone and sat in the back of churches every Sunday to get the kids in.
Yeah, on your knees to avoid the fees, as some people say. Julie, listen, thank you for that. That's Julie in Chester there, David's been in touch from the Cotswolds. He says you don't need to find mugs on eBay. 9,700,000 of them put 411 bigger ones in the House of Commons, says David. Interesting thought there. Alison, County Antrim, says poor take up Dave's face on that exchange when we're talking about his marriage. He's got his head in his hands now as well. That's not just because he's working on this programme. And Debbie's been back in touch, Dave, and says that from both Debbie and her husband Dave, they are send Take Up Dave our best. I'm glad the dream team are back together. Well, actually, believe it or not, the poor old producer of this programme, the marvellous James Liney, has gone home sick. So we're having a bit of a reunion, actually, of the usual previous Saturday team from a while ago, Saturday and Sunday team from a while ago, Gabriella in Calza is sitting in for James because he's sadly had to go home unwell. She's Petrie's producer and she's helping out, and I really appreciate that, and thank you to Petrie as well for sparing Gabriella to produce the programme. And Tech Up Dave is here too. Joe Willoughby in East Yorkshire says, Peter, great show. What's the difference between asking people to be married and some councils prioritising immigrants for housing? That's a very interesting point. Let's hear a voice note from Helen. Helen has a thought on immigration as well. This is what she has to say.
Hi, Peter. It's Helen in Knutsford. It's absolutely crazy how we encourage, and we do, the illegal immigrants to come here, giving them all of this stuff, letting them go wherever they want, and they've got money and phones. It's absolutely mad. When I was 24, I'm in my late 50s now, it was in 1991, I met a guy from Algeria. He was here illegally, totally lied to me. I fell madly in love with him. I told him I was never going to marry him, but I was with him for 4 years. It was a nightmare. And he would have thought this was an absolute dream. Back then, he came in with a false passport on a plane. Oh, God, I mean, it's just ridiculous how they're just pandering to them.
Thank you for that, Helen. And Becca's been in touch and said, I was in an abusive marriage. I left for the safety of my children and me. As hard as that was, after getting back on my feet, it was the best thing I have ever done. I wouldn't stay in a toxic marriage to stay in a social house. Reform has royally screwed up with this policy, in Becca's views. What do you think about that? Plenty of time for calls between now and 10, 0344 499 1000. We'll change the tone slightly and speak about Harry and Meghan in just a second. More revelations today. Front page of the Times newspaper as well, saying that her gangster series rule was leaked to suggest she was in demand. We'll hear from Charlie Ray, who's the former royal editor of The Sun, in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Charlie Ray is with us now. He's the former royal editor of The Sun. Good evening, Charlie. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Peter. It's nice to speak to you again.
It's been very quiet for you, I'm sure, since Thursday. Feet up, pina colada, very little to talk about. The Times this morning, Meghan's gangster series rule leaked to suggest she was in demand. We've got more revelations, it seems, every day about what the Sussexes are going to do. What's your take on it, and do you think they'll be welcomed back to these shores?
Well, the short answer, do I think they're going to be welcomed back to these shores? The answer is no. I'm talking about the general public. There may be some members of the royal family, like the King, who would welcome it because of his grandchildren. But I doubt very much if there's any whooping and joyous celebrations by other members of the royal family. Look, Peter, it's very simple. We've heard, and it's not been denied, they are coming back. That's all we know. We know they're coming back. We don't know how long they're coming back for. They're keeping Montecito. They're still going to keep their place in Portugal, which suggests that their time in the UK is going to be limited. Months.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually, because I know there were insiders telling the Sunday Times yesterday that it could be 6 months, could be a year, you know, it may not be that long, actually. So this is not a sort of reverse Megxit, as some people were saying.
No, that would suggest that if there is an acting job on the horizon, it is not unusual for actors to move their whole family, halfway across the world,
especially young children who need their mother and their father. Yeah.
And it makes sense that you enroll them in a school. Now, the big problem is Harry is still talking about his security, and that security is going to cost at least £5 million. We know that. Now, the interesting thing is that the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, known as RAVEC, has already met and has finished its investigation. But what they haven't done is they haven't told Harry what the result of that investigation is. However, investigation was completed before anybody ever knew that Harry and Meghan were coming back to the UK. So RAVEC are going to have another look at that scenario, at that plea for security.
Yeah.
Because they were the RAVEC were weighing up whether the suspects should automatically receive armed protection whenever they were in the UK. But if they're going to be here long term, that's a different kettle of fish. I'm not suggesting that they should get it. I don't think they should get it, but we have to wait and see what RAVEC says all about that.
We've seen some extraordinary conciliatory moves from the King, particularly from Camilla, the Queen, who Harry referred to as a witch in his book, was really, really horrible about. And she was at Highgrove when they met last month, and it was all smiles, apparently. Clearly, there is some relationship there, and they want it to work, not least for Charles's sake. The King, is not well and has cancer and is still having treatment for it. What about the Waleses? What about Catherine and William? Because the front page of the Sun today, your old paper, we're all grin it together. Yep. Royals united front over Harry and Meghan return, beamed yesterday as they put it on a united front to attend church days after Harry announced he and his wife are returning to the UK, gathering in Balmoral with the King and Queen for their annual retreat. No doubt they'll be talking about the return of Harry, Meghan, Lilibet, and indeed the boy as well, their son Archie.
But there's no sign of any thawing in the relationship from William and Catherine. And an example of that was that when Harry and Meghan and the kids went over to Highgrove to see the King, which they spent an hour with him, where were William and Catherine? They were just down the road, and he was playing in a polo match. We saw the pictures. They weren't bothered about whether, his brother was seeing their father. They haven't spoken for at least 4 years. Let's not forget that. And there's an awful lot of things going under the bridge. And you mentioned Camilla. Camilla, yes, you're absolutely right, was at that little tea party. But I suspect that Camilla was there more so to make sure the recollections of the event didn't vary that much. She was there watching over the King because she's very concerned about him. And, he referred to her as a witch and everything else. Well, you can't just brush that aside. You can't brush Oprah Winfrey aside.
In about as public a way as you can, he called his stepmother a witch. I mean, she is very good to entertain him at all, but as you say, looking after Charles, I expect the spa weekends with Camilla and Meghan will be few and far between.
I doubt very much if they're going to happen all that much. If they are coming over because it's not been denied. So the only good thing that's going to come out of this is that the King is going to be able to see his American grandchildren a lot more often. Are they going to have invites to Sandringham? Are they going to have invites to Balmoral? I doubt very much. Yeah. Really. I mean, Christmas is coming. Are they going to be invited at Christmas? We will have to wait and see what the score is. And until we can pin down the reasons why they're over here, why it's not just because Harry wants to be closer to his father because of the cancer.
Do you think, just on that note about why they're here, do you think that Netflix series stuff was a load of bunkum? What's your view on that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It seems to be a runner. We've heard that Tina Brown, how she knows, I don't know. Maybe she's got some very good contacts. I haven't got a clue. It says it's the talks are off. But yet we're hearing again this morning that the talks are very much still on. So we'll have to wait and see. There has to be a reason why Harry and Meghan are coming over here. And it's not just because Harry wants to come back to the UK for a while and be closer to his father.
Okay.
There's more to it.
Charlie, as always, thank you. That's Charlie Ray there, former royal editor of The Sun. What do you make of this? 0344 499 1000. We'll take plenty of calls right up until 10. We'll have a chat with Petri Hoskin as well. She's here between 10 and 1. She is a superb producer. And Gabriella and Calza, who has been slightly pulled in a different direction this evening because poor old James is not very well. We wish him well and hope he is back to full strength ASAP. And of course, we'll hear your views on all the big issues of the day. 0344 499 1000. Take some calls in just a second. Just before we go to the break, Ernie's been in touch and says, good for Tech Up Dave. He can buy himself flowers, he can write his name in the sand, he can talk to himself for hours, say things only he understands, he can take himself dancing, he can walk in the rain, he can hold his own hand. I love my company and I'll have been married for nearly 50 years next year. I really get on very well with myself. Always do what makes you happy. That is a good life lesson from Ernie. Stay with us here on Talk.
Let's get to the calls now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin. Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to...
Disagree with me.
Yeah. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I'm never talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'll be less accidents. More people...
more people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stuart's been in touch and says reform are clueless. Working people will want to either rent privately or get a mortgage. Social housing is for the unemployed or for those who have a low income, yet they could have worked for years and fallen on hard times. Disabled people and people with children have priority over social housing homes. Let's go to the phones and talk about housing with Craig in Yorkshire. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can too. There are 14 minutes to the end of the programme. I'll get in as many calls as I can. Craig, you're very welcome. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi Peter, good evening. Thanks for calling me back. So I think, reform, their ideas are, broadly sensible, and, they could look overseas to see how these systems and resources are managed in other countries. So, in the UK, social housing, there's so little of it in reality. It was all sold off. And the bad thing that never happened was that the money that was realised was never used to build new social
It was meant,
housing.
the idea, Thatcher's idea was that money would go to build new homes, as you say, and that just didn't happen. We're way behind on supply, aren't we?
Exactly. And if you look at overseas, I've mentioned before I lived in Hong Kong for 30 years, and 60% of people in Hong Kong live in what's called public rental housing or social housing as we would know it. And the way that the applications are managed there is you have different queue lanes. So there's a general family queue, then there's a family queue plus special priority. That means you have a baby on the way. It could also be a special elderly priority queue, and then there's a totally separate queue, which is a massively lower priority, and that's for singletons. So
Okay.
the priorities are around, couples, and then couples with children.
And do they differentiate there by people who are married and not married? Because that's what Reform UK is proposing to do.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I mean, they're saying that, you could be living together, but generally speaking, Hong Kong is a conservative society, and it's highly unusual for a couple, to have a baby outside of wedlock.
Yeah,
That.
Well, different kind of ideas on all of that. Yeah. Craig, thanks for sharing your experience there. Very, very interesting call. Let's go to Lee in Luton, who wants to talk about joyriders. Lee, you're very welcome. What would you like to say? Lee, are you there?
Hello, Peter.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm there, mate. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. What would you like to say? Lee? Oh no, the line is not behaving itself. We'll get the people behind the scenes to have a quick look at that. We'll hopefully get Lee back on in a second. Lenny in Ashford is on the line and has some thoughts on David Lammy. Lenny, what would you like to say?
Good evening,
Good
Peter.
evening. Hi.
Yeah, well, I've learned to debate, to learn people's mentality.
Okay.
And I have studied the mentality of, I can't think of his name. I'm in a senior moment.
Is it David Lammy you've given us a ring about?
David Lammy.
There we go.
I'm terribly sorry, Peter.
Don't worry at all. I'm 42. I forget people's names all the time. Right.
Now, Lammy's mentality is full of hate.
Why do you say that? Why do you think he's full of hate?
Well, you only have to look at what he how he addresses people that vote against Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
He calls us Nazis,
mm-hmm.
and when he wants the money for for the slave trade, and he goes, we're entitled to our revenge. And that man is full of hate.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the revenge comments, but certainly he is in favour of reparations. So how do you think that fits into to what he's been doing recently?
It's his mentality.
Okay.
And he's full of revenge for the Prime Minister who has sacked him. And I think, and when he said that he gave the number by mistake, how could it be a mistake?
Do you think he deliberately gave the number to Andy Burnham? Because there's no suggestion that's happened. Andy Burnham doesn't think that.
Well, I personally think it's only my only fault, and I tell you how I'm truly feeling.
Yeah.
And I feel it was because it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I mean, why would he keep?
Couldn't he have been scammed? I mean, I've been a victim of scammers myself. I don't know if you have, Lenny, but it's an easy thing when people pretend to be one thing and actually they're not.
Yeah, but if you've got a scammer on your phone, you make a special note of it.
Yeah, but what if you don't know it's a scammer and you're happily corresponding with that person, thinking it's the person it is, and you give it in good faith? I mean, there's no suggestion from anybody that Lammy's lying here or has done it not in good faith. You think he's bitter?
I do, because I look at Lammy's mentality.
Okay. Well, listen, interesting thoughts on that. Thank you, Lenny, for that. Speaking of scams, I mentioned this a couple of times, but there is a scam going around pretending to be me, saying that people can come on this programme if they pay money. That is not the case, and we would never do that, and we would never ask for money to come on this programme. It's totally free to take part, apart from the cost of the call, obviously. If you ring 0344 499 1000, then we ring you back and get you on the line. But this was for people to be interviewed and things. It's not me. It's an email address. It's not me. I've put the whole thing on my Twitter as well, so please don't be taken in. Peter says, why is Gabriella getting her own show as a presenter? Well, I don't know. I think that's a question we all have to ask. She says never in my ear, but never say never would be my question. Maybe that's a question for our boss, the Ayatollah of audio himself, Denny Morris. I don't know. On reparations, Frank's been in touch from Bristol on this matter that Lenny was chatting about a second ago. Frank, you're very welcome. What would you like to say?
Hello. Well, if reparations are going to be handed out for the enslavement, the kidnapping and enslavement of people.
I don't think they are, though. I mean, there are plenty of people calling for that, Frank.
Yeah. What are the African nations going to give us white Europeans? For well over 1 million they enslaved. It was the amount of British sailors that were killed fighting off Africans, enslaving people.
You can go back and all sorts of things. I mean, you could say to the Norwegians, the Vikings should pay reparations. You could say the Romans should pay reparations for invading England, shouldn't you?
We have to check our history first and foremost, but that's going back a fair old way. The people that are asking for reparations are talking about 250, 300 years ago. So, okay, let's go back to just that period. What are they going to give us? What are the African nations, the Barbary pirates, going to give us? Because they enslaved over 1 million. We don't want anything. We haven't asked for anything. We're just getting on with life. What are they going to do about the hundreds of thousands of Africans that are enslaved today, being sold by their own people into the Middle East?
And I think
they're not asking the Arabic nations for any reparations.
I think that's a very, very good point, Frank. And modern slavery and slavery that's going on today is much more important, I would argue. Also, how do you give money to the governments, some of which are corrupt? Do you give money to the people? What if people are, you know, what if they have mixed heritage, for example? What if they're a 16th black African and they're 15/16ths white European, for example? Do they get a 16th of the money? It doesn't stack up or add up as an idea. Frank, thank you for your call. David's in Bath in Somerset and has some thoughts on our debate earlier on Reform UK and housing. David, you're very welcome. What would you like to say?
Hello.
Hi, David. Would you mind doing me a favour and just turn down your radio or your TV, because it's a few seconds behind our call. So I'll come back to you in a second, David.
Certainly, Peter. My apologies.
Don't apologise. Absolutely fine. Easily done. Is it off now?
Yeah, that's great.
Good man. You tell me your thoughts, David.
Right. I saw your interview earlier on this evening between a Liberal Democrat MP and a Reform councillor. And throughout the whole thing, the Liberal Democrat MP was smirking.
He's not an MP, he's an activist. He used to be a councillor, so that's Matthew Holbert, I think you're talking about, yeah.
My apologies. Now, the Reform councillor was on about the Reform housing policy. He's on about country, community and families. And he accepted the fact that he wasn't married, and therefore he'd go down the housing list.
Do you think that's fair that he goes down the housing list because he's not married?
I totally agree.
He's in a family unit, though. I mean, marriage, it does make a difference, but is that something we should be encouraging?
First of all, yes, we should be encouraging it, because, as you stated earlier in the programme, married couples, man and wife, with children, appear from statistics. Now, as I've previously expressed, I sometimes wonder about where these statistics come from. However, if we accept that that's correct, then yes, I think that should be the norm. Now, we could have a completely a total programme about that. Now, what came across to me was that this Liberal Democrat was smirking at himself. That is typical of too many MPs. They're not interested in us, the people of this country, the people who voted for them. They're only interested in themselves. Now, without getting into the politics, I think that's one reason why there won't be an election shortly, because I know we'd...
Yeah, and actually on that note, David, Andy Burnham has said there won't be an election this side of Christmas. He's confirmed that today. David, we'll talk more on another occasion, but I've just got to go to Petri Hoskin. And Petri, I have a very important question to ask you. Is this your concealer?
No.
No, another candidate eliminated. This is Poirot 2.0. You don't need number 7, Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Serum Concealer, apparently.
No.
Any thoughts on whose it might be?
Well, there are so few women here. It's one of the men, isn't it?
So Alex was here earlier. She's denied it's her.
Okay.
There's
3 women.
Yeah.
So
of 10.
two have said no.
Okay.
Julia, I don't think I've ever known bring makeup into the studio.
She's off this week as well.
Well, there you go. It's a man.
Okay, well, it's not me,
It's
so
Kev.
that's 4
Kev.
gone. It's Kev,
My
is
money's
it?
on Kev.
Your money's on Kev?
Yeah, or
Concealer.
JK.
Okay, interesting.
Mm.
I'm going to leave it there conspicuously
leave it there.
on the desk.
Yeah.
Arguably, some would argue more important. What's on your show?
Maybe not more important. I don't know. That's a big case.
Well, you're not concealing anything.
I'm not concealing a thing. We're going to be talking about Andy Burnham going to Kyiv for his first official overseas trip. There's a lot going on with Russia and what we're doing for Russia and what Russia is threatening to do to us. Some experts think that there will be military response from Russia towards the UK in the next year to a year and a half, probably at sea, not on land, but still that would test the NATO resolve. So there's a lot going on here, and of course the ambassador's been removed, the Russian ambassador's been removed as well now. So a lot to talk about with that. We're also going to be looking at the Harry and Meghan security. The thing I don't understand is that the royal family are incredibly rich. Can they not pay for it?
I think Harry and Meghan probably can if they want to.
Well, Dad can as well, right?
Yeah,
He's the king.
but surely if it can get it for free, I mean that's preferable.
Yeah, but of course it's preferable, but it's not free, is it? You're paying for it.
Well, of course,
and I'm
the
paying
taxpayer's paying for it. But if someone says, Harry, either you can part with £5 million a year, or you can get it off the taxpayer. He's gonna fight tooth and nail to get it off the taxpayer.
Well,
isn't he?
I think that's pretty disgusting, since he hasn't been a taxpayer in this country for the last 6 years. So I don't think you can have it all your own way.
Petri Hoskins' hateful anti-immigrant rhetoric.
I'm angry about it, actually, because I think, how blooming dare they? But there are plenty of people in this country who'd like to feel safe and secure.
Very true.
We can't apply for that sort of thing. And also, we're going to be talking about social media policing, and is it time to accept that these social media giants really can't police themselves? They said to all governments, look, leave us to it, we'll make sure, don't